The Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find The Monty Show, streaming live and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube. And now, here's Monty.
Hey, yo, man, how the heck are you? We are live at Big 12 Football Media Days right here on The Monty Show, which is, as always, presented by our friends at The Advocates, the UtahAdvocates.com. Man, what a building, what a venue, what an event. And, Jake, I wonder your thoughts on what you've seen so far. Commissioner Brett Yormark just got done with his Q&A and his opening comments. Obviously, this place is massive. Obviously, there's a lot of people here. What are your thoughts on what you heard?
I think my first thoughts on what I heard are that, Brett Yormark is, as usual, very well-spoken, very clean, very polished, very prepared. And I think it's something that I always say we shouldn't take for granted. There's a lot of commissioners in sports, and I think he's one of the best. I think that, some of the things he said that were really interesting. Number one, they are going to continue their partnership with AT&T Stadium through 2030 to have the Big 12 championship, football championship game here. As part of that process, they are going to have halftime shows that include the two schools' bands plus A-list musician of some kind. So very much like I'm not going to say the Super Bowl, but kind of a baby Super Bowl format in a sense, where you have a halftime show and basically a big happening. And I just have to say, I can't think of a better venue to do that in than Jerry World. That's essentially what this building was built to do. Right.
And I think they did a really nice job, by the way, rolling that out. But I also think one of the more interesting parts of Brett Yormark's statements to the media today were absolutely his walking back, the right way to say it. Brett Yormark walked back his comments from last year about, being open for business. And I don't necessarily believe that he misspoke. I don't know if that's how I would put it. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think when you look at the way that Brett Yormark so succinctly said, what I meant last year was we were open for business across the board. And I think this is a really important detail, because what Brett Yormark very clearly is trying to do, and what we've seen him do in the previous weeks here, is not to be in attack mode, if you will. He very clearly has gone out of his way not to talk about the Pac-12, not to talk about brands of the Pac-12, which I agree with what Commissioner Yormark said a couple of weeks ago. I never mentioned anybody specifically.
Right.
And he has not mentioned brands in the Pac-12 specifically. So, I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
But when you hear him here so carefully and so calculatedly talking about we're open for business, here's what I meant. He took a lot of flack over that last year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But what he said he meant was we're open for business across the board, commercially, sales-wise, revenue streams, TV partners. And I think he's absolutely right that they have spent, as we've talked about ad nauseum on the show, the Big 12 has spent the better part of the last year being open for business, whether that's Mexico, which he talked about quite a bit. People mocked us when we said they don't do anything without interfacing with their TV partners. Well, what did Brett Yormark say today? We have a great relationship with our TV partners. And we don't do anything without talking to them. And he talked specifically about how the relationship with Mexico was born out of partnerships with Fox and ESPN, who outside of those events in Monterrey and Mexico City are going to begin broadcasting Big 12 games on Deportes in Spanish, which I think is a big reach and a big point of value for the Big 12. I don't think there's any question about that. But I feel like this commercial division, I feel like all the business aspect, all the revenue generation we've heard about in this conference over the last year, it's undeniable. And it is, in my mind, the reason that this conference is in such a good spot. Brett Yormark also said, hey, there's never been a better time to join or be a member of the Big 12, and I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's clearly a lot of positive momentum right now, and I think you like we have obviously the stage where Brett and everyone's going to do their media availability is sort of off probably 40 yards in the distance here, and you start to see some of these names coming across the stage, and you start to understand that the Big 12 has really valuable brands. There's no way around that, and it's not even a thing where it's like, hey, other conferences don't, obviously, but I think Brett Yormark uniquely understands that, hey, it's not just a thing where we can go out and do kind of whatever we want, whatever way we want. We need to make sure that we have strong, tangible and productive partnerships with presidents and ADs at our member institutions, because if we can do that, that's going to allow us to conduct business in a more efficient manner and allow us to continue to keep the health of the conference high. And I think if you can keep your conference healthy, moving forward, sort of always on the offense rather than getting into this position where you're like, well, how, we're a little short on revenue there. We're kind of playing defense here. Like, I kind of feel like that's what we see in college football now is like some conferences are playing defense and other conferences are playing offense. And I really feel like the Big 12 is on the, precipice of mastering how to, consistently be going forward, even though you're maybe losing Texas and Oklahoma, you're still going forward when that's something that could have easily dragged you down. So I think Brett Yormark today, did a great job of walking back or just correcting what he meant by that, while also being like, hey, we have a lot of positive stuff happening and there's no better time to be in the Big 12. Like, I think he handled it perfectly.
Well, and I also think this rebrand that Brett Yormark announced, where he talked about the fact that there's going to be a new logo coming up. The conference is completely different. July 1st was a significant day in the history of the Big 12. And I mean, I think this rebrand is exactly what this conference needs. It needs a new logo. It needs a new feel because it's not the same conference anymore. I also thought he handled Oklahoma and Texas exceptionally well, talking about how important they are to the history of the brand and celebrating their contribution to the conference this coming year. I think that's exceptional. I think that's the right mindset, because without Texas and Oklahoma, we're not sitting here today. And I think that's really important. I think one of the other highlights is you talked about being at AT&T Stadium for Big 12 Media Days, being at AT&T Stadium for the conference championship game, being at AT&T Stadium and really around the Dallas Cowboys for the Pro Day. I think the relationship in Dallas and being, having Dallas be your home, that's very clearly important to Brett Yormark in the Big 12.
Well, and I just think that it's a clear staple opportunity in the Big 12's footprint. I mean, again, you look at some of the other conferences and some of them have more opportunity and some of them have less opportunity to do stuff like this. And I think the fact that AT&T Stadium, Jerry World is in your footprint, why would you not have your pro day there? Why would you not have media days there? I mean, again, I can't say this enough. I mean, when you compare the Big 12 and the Pac-12 is doing their media day in a hotel in Las Vegas. It doesn't have that specialness. It doesn't have that sort of allure to it. The
big,
way
important, significant.
Yeah, right. Like, it doesn't have that feel to it, and that's what I think Jerry World does. But I think Brett Yormark just understands, man. Like, I am the commissioner, but if I can keep the presidents and the ADs all in alignment and all in a good place and all feeling positive, it allows the conference to move forward. And that's what really has stood out to me so far is, like, whether we're talking to players or head coaches or whoever, they're all sort of in this forward thinking, hey, I need to get out of bed on time. I need to get better at this or that mode. And that's why I think the Big 12, from top to bottom is doing so well.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that is so critical about AT&T Stadium and the Dallas Cowboys is while it is Tarrant County, Irving, Texas, Arlington, it's Dallas. Yeah. And this is where this conference lives. And I would tell you that there is no question in my mind that Dallas is the heart of the Big 12 conference. And I think that is such a big statement because the Big 12 owns Dallas. The Big 12 owns Texas. We talk about expansion all the time, but when you look at Texas Tech, you look at, TCU, you look at Houston, you look at the reach that this conference has, Baylor, it's not fighting for SMU. It's not, because it's already won the state of Texas. And I think that is a really significant piece of business, because when it comes to talent, or it comes to football recruiting, or whatever you want to talk about, there are wins and losses. This is a win. Being at Jerry World is a win.
Yeah.
And I think that relationship only grows the perception of the conference. And that perception is reality. And I think it's really important to understand that you can no longer, and again, this is just my opinion, you can no longer play defense. In college football, especially at the conference level, you always have to be on offense, because there are always going to be conferences pecking at your heels, whether you're the ACC and the Pac-12, certainly, who are both, I think, in existential crisis mode, or you're the SEC and the Big Ten and you're on the offense, or the Big 12, which I don't know where the Big 12, frankly, is in the grand scheme of things. They're certainly at the conference level on the offense, but you don't get the feeling at this point that there's a single member of this conference who's upset, who's uncomfortable, who'd rather be somewhere else. You don't get that feeling at all. And I think that's really huge right now in the grand scheme of things where we are in college sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it's just like, I look around our setting here, and you see all these people who are excited to be here, who are excited to ask Brett about like what his thoughts on NIL were. That was kind of the other thing. He wasn't too keen on talking about like, where NIL is going.
Because that's a no-win for him.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about it. It's a no-win.
It is. And he did say that he felt like, NIL needed some federal regulation just to kind of, unify everything, just to kind of make it so, we have a box to work in with NIL.
Yep.
He was very clear on saying that, there's 32 states involved in NIL, and the interpretation is very different depending on the state. And that's facts. That's true. I mean, there are very much different interpretations. I do think that NIL is a crucial, item on the totem pole of importance right now in college football. It has to get figured out. We have to be able to allow these kids to earn money and do their thing because they work their ass off, frankly, and they're really smart and they're really good at what they do. But until there's some unity with it, I just don't think that it's going to be able to move forward smoothly. So Brett did a good job talking about NIL, but overall, yeah, I mean, I think the Big 12, based on what, Commissioner Yormark said today, is on the offense. I just don't see it any other way. And I think that's not going to change for a while. You would need the conference to make a mistake in expansion for this conference to start backsliding. Like you need them to add a school that nobody saw come in, or, some big misstep there for this conference really to kind of take a back step, which I don't think is going to happen. I do think it's important to point out Brett Yormark, very tactful in what he said about expansion.
Yes.
Hey, we do have a plan, but I'm not going to talk about that plan. He did say that they hope to see the plan come through, which my interpretation, again, my opinion, my interpretation is that, to me, that kind of feels like, hey, we have some targets out west, and we do have a plan right in front of us, regardless of that. So, we hope that the teams out west come through. But again, that's out of their control, much like we've discussed on the show to this point.
Well, and I also think this belief or this situation where, is the Big 12 growing? Yes, the Big 12 is growing.
Yeah.
There is no question about that. And I think there is this, desire. There is this narrative out there that people want to push that, losing Texas and Oklahoma and losing those brands is going to kill the conference. I just don't see that happening. I mean, you have brought in several major metro markets here, UCF, BYU, Houston. Like you look at Cincinnati, again, all four of them bring value to your conference. There's no doubt about this. So this idea that the conference is somehow struggling or not doing enough or winning enough or growing enough, I just disagree with it completely.
Yeah, well, I think, again, when you're making a college football playoff, championship game appearance, I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, again, it's just an impressive run. Like, I'm not a TCU fan. I'm certainly no TCU apologist. But Brett Yormark was quick to point out today that TCU started as an unranked team on the football field last year and got all the way to the college football playoff. And I think that's a really great point. So to me, I think that it's it's a great story. I do think there's no doubt, whether you're a Pac-12 person, a Big 12 person, an SEC person, or an ACC person, the Big 12 is moving forward. And I just don't know how that really is in dispute. And again, the Texas and Oklahoma thing, yeah, that could have pulled the conference down. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But it didn't. It didn't. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, and I think this conference has experienced significant loss. I mean, there's just no way to spin that. When you look at Nebraska or Texas A&M or any of these former members that sought greener pastures, how many of them have really flourished? Because I don't buy Texas A&M. I don't buy. Nebraska certainly has not flourished since it went to the Big Ten. I mean, now is that changing? Certainly that could be changing.
Yeah.
But I don't see that somehow the Big 12 is some terrible place to be. And I understand that right now the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and those fan bases want to compete. I just don't see any reason to do that.
Well, and walking around the field here and trying to get interviews and stuff like that, a lot of the chatter from the folks outside of Salt Lake is that, I literally heard one group of people saying, hey, Utah fans have flipped a lot, where, hey, at one point they were all out on the Big 12. Hey, we're not interested. That conference is below us, X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And now, Utah fans are very much in on the Big 12 because of the current situation. So it does seem like the national perspective, or the perspective of the folks here who are not from Salt Lake, feel like Utah fan and that program has kind of flip-flopped. And I have to say, I do think that Utah needs to take a harder look, as do many schools in the Pac-12. And we've obviously talked about that at length. But yeah, I think the Big 12 is a very great place to be right now. And I think they just need to be mindful in expansion not to make the wrong choices, or I guess to make the right choices.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think it's really interesting. And this is just my opinion again. I think it's very interesting, the spin and the misinformation that is out there right now, because I just don't see any reason to battle that. I think when we sit here and we talk about, where these schools are and where these conferences are, I just don't see any reason to sit here and be negative or spin or, play the Big 12 off the Pac-12, because they're in completely different situations. And no matter why, or, no matter what your belief is, the Pac-12 has been playing defense for a year. You just had Brett Yormark stand up there and talk about all of the commercial success that the Big 12 has experienced over the last year. They're in two completely different places. At this point, where we are on July 12, 2023, to compare the two to each other is ridiculous. There is no comparison at this point. Now, when the Pac-12 at some point comes out and announces this deal and gets a new TV deal and gets a new media rights deal, okay, we're having a different conversation then. We're absolutely having a different conversation. But let's not today waste this opportunity by trying to bring up or bring down the Pac-12. There's just no need for that. They have their media day. Let them work through their situation, and let's celebrate what the Big 12 is today, because it's a hell of a conference right now. And I think when you look at Brett Yormark's words, when you look at the like, if you weren't with us in our first episode of the show this afternoon, go back and watch the interviews with all the Houston players, because the excitement in the Houston Cougar locker room is palatable. You can feel that. You can hear that in their voice with their preparation and their hard work. And the thing that is so clear here is every one of these teams that is here today, whether it's Oklahoma State, whether it is TCU, Texas, there is excitement around all of these programs. Now, are there issues? Absolutely. It's not all shine. It's not all easy. There is excitement, but there are also issues. But all of these teams have a path to growth and creation. And I think that's what, creating a spot in the college football playoff really should be all that. Hello, it goes the other way there. Hey, look, everybody. Jake is back. Hi,
hello.
Jake. There he is. What are we looking at?
Yes. Yeah, so the news right now is we will be getting some Kansas football players coming through probably in the next 20 minutes or so. They have 2 guys out right now. They will have 2 more guys coming out. And it does feel like momentum's picking up. Feels like now we're getting some more players coming out.
That would be nice.
Interviews are coming.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very interesting to see right now. All the mascots are out, and Like all the cheerleaders are out. Like this is the fanfare, and now all the coaches' press conferences are about to start. So we should absolutely have that for you. But Kansas is really interesting. I'll be interested to see how Kansas's energy is, because last year I don't think there's any doubt that where Kansas was and where Kansas is going, that guys like Jalen Daniels, he's a huge figure for Kansas. I mean, he's the preseason offensive player of the year, 425 yards, second most from a Jayhawk in 2020. Like, he had a huge year last year. And so when you look at the expectations and you look at Kansas football and you look at what they did last year, now the question becomes, how do they do that again this year?
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of the question facing a lot of teams. In Kansas, obviously, has to continue to get better. I think that Kansas is one of those brands in the Big 12 that could very easily and probably is known more for basketball than football, even though their football program is really good. I mean, again, they're not win the conference good, but they're really solid. They will give you a tough fight, any given weekend. And I think that's kind of what I think Kansas has to grow from. You got to grow from, on the football field anyway, a team that just gives you a good fight to a team that's consistently winning and pushing to win the conference.
Well, I mean, at Kansas, I think their offense is going to be remarkably consistent. To go from 2-10 to 6-7 is a massive jump for Kansas. And my biggest question is, how do you get better on defense? I think the offense will be fine. You have your stars back on offense. You're deep on offense. But the biggest question is, how do you get that 35.5 points a game last year down to 30? Because you're not going to shave off 10 points a game. Right. Unless you completely transform that defense, which Kansas did not do. But I also think this is right now today a top 5 team in this conference. Mm-hmm. And if you're one of the 5 best teams in the Big 12, you have a chance to go play for the conference championship. And at that point, all bets are off. Now, obviously, when the college football playoff expands next year, then we're having a different conversation. But here today, I don't think there's any question that Kansas is one of those teams that if they do live up to those expectations on offense and they can shave 5 points off, a minimum of 5 points off, that 6-7 can very easily be 8-5.
Yes.
And if you get to 8-5, I think if you're that kind of team, that's a huge jump forward for Kansas.
Well, and I think that, in the Big 12, I mean, none of these teams are so dominant that you never have a chance to beat them. I mean, I think we can all agree that the Big 12 is loaded with teams that aren't great in one possession games, and I think, I look at a team like Kansas that, goes from 2-10 to 6-7. It's like, yeah, you're still a sub 500 team, but now you're bowl eligible. Now you're getting to a place where it's like, hey, we're progressing. So yeah, sure, last year you improved, but now you got to be that 8-9 win team. I mean, that's progress this year. Because, again, the difference between 6 wins and 10 wins is usually literally like 5 or 6 plays. And that to me is what a lot of people don't understand about college football is like, hey, it's one turnover, or it's a missed extra point, or it's these little things that hold you back. And so for a team like Kansas, I mean, again, I'm going to keep saying this. Last year, nobody was saying, at media day that TCU was going to the national championship game. So I'm not going to sit here and say I expect Kansas to be a national championship contender, but I'm just telling you that the difference between mediocre and great is the little things. So Kansas just needs to improve on those things.
Yeah, and by the way, Max Duggan from last year won the new Bob Bowlesby Award as the outstanding male athlete in the conference. Mm-hmm. So congratulations to Mr. Duggan for that. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see where Kansas goes. I think Kansas, Baylor, I think they are fascinating. We are live at AT&T Stadium in Dallas for Big 12 Football Media Days here on the Monty Show, presented by our good friends at BladeHQ.com. We've been talking about BladeHQ.com for several weeks now. You guys, very simply put, BladeHQ.com delivers the best knives from the best knife makers. And the thing that you love about doing business with BladeHQ.com, they take care of you. Their customer service level is high. Their website that they designed, all of their website, the visuals, the process behind the scenes, the software that powers the website, all with the idea in mind that they want to deliver their massive inventory of knives to you in a quick and efficient manner, which also keeps your pricing down. If you get to BladeHQ.com, right now you see that they have daily specials, and it's not just knives at BladeHQ.com. If you're a hunter, if you're a survivalist, if you're an outdoorsman, they have everything you need, from lights like lanterns, flashlights, batons, blades of all kinds. If you're a hunter, they have got the gear that you need right now at BladeHQ.com, who presents your coverage of Big 12 Football Media Days live right here at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. As we wait for Kansas to make their appearance on the showroom, let's get some of your comments in here, because we always appreciate you guys watching the show. Thank you, Dahmer Wappy. Dahmer. What's up? Big 12 is not your father's Oldsmobile. No, certainly not. This is not the same version of the Big 12 that we all grew up with. There's no question about that. This is a completely different conference. But one of the things that is so fascinating about the Big 12 right now, as college football as a sport and as a business has changed, the Big 12 has found a way to exist throughout those situations, throughout all of those changes. And now it would seem that through one of the biggest changes, when you're losing Texas and Oklahoma, Bob Bowlesby steps aside, Brett Yormark steps in, gets a new TV deal, finishes off by adding these teams that Bob Bowlesby invited to the conference. Now it seems like the Big 12 is thriving. So it's an interesting analogy about your father's Oldsmobile. It feels like the Big 12 now is making that ramp up. And as we talk about the future of college football, one of the things I think that's on display here today is this idea of a Big Two, these Power Two conferences. I don't know that that's needed. And again, I'll just say, when you look at the business that the Big 12 is doing, why is that needed?
I mean, I don't know that it is needed. I think what happens is a lot of people see, the SEC constantly winning football games and the Big Ten constantly being in the college football playoff. And everyone's like, well, it's the same teams every year, so why don't we just have two conferences and call it a day? I mean, that's what we all like to do. But the reality of the situation is there's so much more substance and depth to these conferences outside of the college football playoff. I mean, the playoff is simply a cash cow if you can make it. I mean, that's what it does for your conference. Now, does it help certain players who play in those games build legacy? Certainly. But ultimately, for teams or for schools and conferences, that's that's the only reason you care about the college football playoff from the business side of it.
Yeah, I don't. And again, I look at Kansas, and I look at that brand. It's a basketball brand, but maybe it's not anymore. And as much as in this conference, as we talk about basketball, it feels like this today, and it's probably overwhelming because it's all football. But it feels like today that you're in a situation where now it's not just all football.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't have to be that way,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it needs to be all football. I think the conference is really balanced between the two. In fact, I would say it's one of the most balanced conferences of any in the country, certainly. But again, it's a school like Kansas, right? where you're known as a basketball school, your football school is improving. And that's just, they just need to keep getting better. Absolutely.
Yep, I agree with you on that, as Jake is about to go hunting again. I appreciate that, Jake. Thank you. But, we get into these conversations so often, and we don't think about, like the future impact of that stuff. But Domer Wap, you're not wrong. I think this is not your father's Big 12 anymore, for sure. J-Rod, how the heck are you, my guy? OU, Texas, K-State, Texas Tech, and TCU in my top tier. Kansas, Baylor, and UCF could jump on. UCF's a really interesting point, because I think UCF is UCF a top 5? No, probably not. But are they 6, 7, 8? Yeah, absolutely they are. And with that home field advantage, again, I don't mean to oversimplify, but with that home field advantage, and if you look at, where UCF is, and you start to understand where is a football program Gus Malzahn has built, all of a sudden you start to understand that, yeah, man, UCF is one of those teams where I don't think you want to necessarily be going to UCF thinking that you're just going to get a win there. I would caution you against that, because I think UCF is one of those programs And UCF will be featured here tomorrow, by the way. But you look at UCF, and the Knights are one of those programs you don't want to run into, man. And I think when you look at that game at Boise on September 9th, I think that's a hugely important football game. Like, that is, Boise is not an easy place to play. I think you also have to consider the fact that if you are TCU, K-State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, like the brands in this Big 12 conference, UCF is somebody you had better really over-prepare for, because you don't have the luxury of going there and feeling like if you're Baylor, if you're West Virginia, if you're Oklahoma State on November 11th, that's going to be a hell of a football game, right? Like, that is going to be a hell of a football game. And by the way, UCF Houston on November 25th, right after Thanksgiving, that's going to be a hell of a football game, man. So I think UCF is capable of bumping up. Absolutely. I think that's right. Patrick Boren, Kansas State's coach, also lifted the program. Don't disagree with that. Your father's Darth Vader. Okay. I mean, you know. Renee Roca says Jake on another 40-yard dash. He's trying. He's absolutely trying. It's kind of a meat market. Like right now, it's been a minute since there were a bunch of players on press row. So now the Kansas guys are out here, and there's blood in the water. So everybody's trying to figure that out. Bryce Martin says Big 12 needs to keep getting 2 teams in the expanded playoff just to stay relevant. Well, I mean, I don't think there's any question that, and I know we've talked this to death on this show. This is why Oklahoma State is so important. They matter significantly. It's why Houston, UCF, BYU, Cincinnati don't have the luxury of taking a decade to ramp up. You need to use a transfer portal. You need to ingest significant junior college transfers. You need to add talent to the program on a regular basis so that you can have access. Because what good is it if you're BYU and you've been an independent and you really haven't had access unless you had an incredible season? What good is it to have access if you're not going to ramp up talent-wise or depth-wise? So I think there's absolutely a need to get multiple teams in the expanded playoff, because the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be there already. You know that. Is the ACC going to be there? Is Florida State going to step up and be a relevant football program again? I don't know. You look at the Miamis of the world, you look at, in the SEC in any given season, you can have an explosion of 5-6 teams. That would not be uncommon. That would not be shocking. Florida shows up occasionally, right? But you're getting Ole Miss and the Lane Train. How good are they, and what is their growth curve right now? How competitive will they be? Is this year he finally gets a big jump at Ole Miss? So for the Big 12 and the Pac-12 as well, the Pac-12 has to, if they want to remain relevant, Pac-12 has to put Oregon, Washington, and Utah into that expanded college football playoff. It has to happen, because very much like Texas and Oklahoma, USC and UCLA were a huge part of the recognition, just the recognition of that conference. So I think that is absolutely a talking point, no doubt. KM, how are you? I remember BYU beating Oklahoma. Their fans were respectable and complimented BYU players. That's where the Big 12 needs to be, complimenting each other. I think this is going to be a bloodthirsty league in the next 5 years, because I think it's going to be a very difficult place to do business. Very difficult. Stan, anyone know who is up first or when Yormark will speak? He already spoke. So that's all done. We're just waiting on players. Renee Roca. I have UCF finishing 5th through 8th. Could be in the mix in the final weeks for sure. Their schedule puts them in the mix. Very much like you look at Oklahoma State's schedule. Oklahoma State, you feel like, well, I think it's strong to say got a pass. Oklahoma State definitely has a softer schedule. There's no doubt about that. You're coming out of 7-6, adding 14 in from the portal. My God, I mean, you're talking about a quarterback battle there with Alan Bowman probably starting there, Ollie Gordon II there. Like you're turning over your defense to somebody that's unproven. You're running a 3-3-5. Like, I mean, Oklahoma State has to have a year this year. Have to. So We'll see. Connor Johnson says Central Florida at Boise is slept on. Oh, man, dude. That game, I'm telling you, there's a couple of games on that UCF schedule. Bless the state. That's a big one. And then there's a game for UCF at Cincinnati that I think is a huge game. That is a huge game. That UCF Cincinnati game could really determine heads up or heads down for the month of November and December for UCF. There's no doubt about that. So I think there's several games on their schedule that are really, really important. And I absolutely think the Boise game, September 9th, that's a huge game. There is just no doubt about that. It's a huge game. Sean Mirzinski, this has to be a surreal experience for you guys. What do you mean? What do you mean a surreal experience? For us or for, explain that. Let's see. Joseph Melendez, what's up, man? Good to see you. I would be surprised if the Big 12 doesn't get 2 teams in quite often. I would as well. That'd be really surprising if they didn't get multiple teams into the playoff on a regular basis. I'd be surprised by that because you have, again, arguably, and I still maintain the Pac-12 was a better conference last year than the Big 12. Arguably, it was a better football conference. But you know what? Hey, man, there's a lot up in the air on that. There is a lot up on the air in the air on that. That's a conjecture. That's opinion. This year, I don't know that that will change because I think the Pac-12 is going to be very good. But once the Pac-12 loses USC and UCLA, no matter who if you add SMU and San Diego State, that you're not going to get more competitive. The biggest question and the biggest issue is always going to be, whether or not you can get competitive outside of Oregon, Washington, and Utah. What does Arizona and Arizona State have? That's a huge question in my mind, right? Because those are the guys, and let that sink in once SC and UCLA leave. Those are the guys that are going to have to carry this conference. And how that happens, I don't know. Hi, Jake.
Hello.
How we doing?
Working on it, man. Kansas is very selective and very much has a plan for their media day.
Okay.
So we're working on getting some guys. Just taking a while.
Okay. So that's a no right now.
That would be a no right now.
Pathetic. I kid. I totally kid. Let's see who else we got. Rick Olson says Prime's first Pac game is against Oregon and Eugene. Good luck with that. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Tech versus Oregon will be a great early test. It will be. I think it'll be very good. Pac-12 was proven not to be. It's about seats in the NY6 and the college football playoff. I don't think there's any. Listen, and I get it. You're a Big 12 guy. The Pac-12 was a better football conference last year. I don't. You had better players at SC. You had the Heisman Trophy winner. You had the best coach, arguably, in the country last year in Lincoln Riley with what he did. I mean, you can sit here and say it's all about college football playoff results, but where did that get you ultimately at the end of the day? I don't know that really got you anywhere at the end of the day. And I understand that you want to talk about, hey, bowl games, and that doesn't make you a better football conference. It simply does not. And I think the Pac-10, I guess the Pac-2.
Apparently it's the Pac-10 now.
The Pac-12 last year, I don't think there's any question the Pac-12 was a better. SC was as good as any team in the Big 12. Utah was as good as any team in the Big 12. Oregon, I'm a little biased. I'm not a Bo Nix believer.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I would say that, but I certainly think that the Pac-12 was the better football conference last year.
Yeah, I mean, Big 12, like Patrick, you're a Big 12 person, so you can have your opinion, but there's no doubt the Pac-12 was a better football conference top to bottom. Did TCU get to the college football playoff on a Cinderella story? Yeah, they did. But that doesn't mean that the Big 12 was a better football conference top to bottom. You're not getting around that.
No, and I think you look at the decline at Oklahoma, Baylor, Oklahoma State, huge disappointments. The disappointing season Texas had. Like it doesn't excuse K-State and TCU don't make you a great conference, right? It's never the top of the conference. It's always the bottom of the conference. And you look at the bottom of the conference, there's no doubt Arizona was improved. There's no doubt Oregon State's a force. You can go anywhere you want. Obviously, you look at the bottom of the Big 12. I mean, there's no getting around the lack of quality at West Virginia. There's no getting around that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's a team in the Pac-12 this season that West Virginia can beat. That's my single biggest question.
Yeah.
And you expand, who is Cincinnati beating in the Pac-12? Well, okay, look at Arizona State maybe. Okay. But Cincinnati after that, I mean, you got 10 teams that I think you're going to have a real difficult time with because Cal's going to be better. Stanford's going to be bad. Okay, great. Give them Stanford too. 3 teams that you feel like, right? Because you're not beating Washington, Utah, Oregon State. I don't think you're doing that.
Yeah, and everyone forgets that Oregon State's 10-win team quality.
Right? So if you lower that and you go to the bottom of the conference to compare the two and decide who's better, the bottom of the Pac-12 is far better than the bottom of the Big 12.
Yeah.
If only because of expansion.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I say, like, for the Big 12, you just have to be mindful about who you're adding in expansion. I mean, if you're mindful and you make good selections, you're going to be you're going to be in a great place. You're going to continue to make progress and move forward. So that's again, I still maintain that's the only mistake here that would really hurt them is just adding a bad member institution that doesn't add value.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Don't forget the Monty Show, as always, is presented by our friends at The Advocates, theadvocates.com. You guys, right now, The Advocates are working with the Road Home to provide school for homeless children and get those children the equipment, the clothing, the food, the funds that they need to thrive as students while helping them find a way back to a place that's safe and comfortable where they can lay their heads at night. The Road Home is such a good organization. Please get to The Advocates, chat with them online right now. Ask them how you can help send a homeless kid to school, help pay for the equipment, the clothing, the school supplies that kids need to go to high school so they can get to college and end that cycle of homelessness. Get to The Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com, theadvocates.com right now. Tell them you heard about it on The Monty Show.
You just can't comprehend how much energy there is in a collision like that. This vehicle was coming towards me and it swerved over into my lane and hit me head on. Spent 9 days in the hospital. There was just no way I was going to be able to do all of what needed to be done on my own. I called the Advocates and we got the paperwork started then and there. They were able to do things for me that I couldn't have done myself. If someone I knew got in an accident, I would tell them to contact the Advocates.
The Advocates at theadvocates.com present the Monty Show. We are live at Big 12 Football Media Days presented by our friends at bladehq.com, bladehq.com. The best knives from the best knife makers. They routinely have over 15,000 knives in stock for you to shop on their website right now at bladehq.com. Let's keep going with your comments because it seems that a lot of you want to banter back and forth about which conference is better. Clint Moses says Fickell leaving is huge. Massive. Luke Fickell leaving Cincinnati is a gut punch. You can spin that any way you want. There's really no way to spin it. Luke Fickell is irreplaceable at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And we'll see how he does at Wisconsin, who is in desperate need of a injection of energy. But Luke Fickell leaving Cincinnati is a game changer.
Yeah, and I think that, Cincinnati is going to have to find a way to, cover that gap. I mean, again, it's the same thing as the other schools we've been talking about, whether it's TCU and Max Duggan or whatever. I mean, Cincinnati, is going to have to find a way to fill that gap. And I think that, again, great head coaches make great programs. And I think at the same time, when a head coach on Luke Fickell's level leaves a program, there's an opportunity to step in and fill that gap. Now, will that happen? I don't know, but I'm just telling you, there are plenty of coaches out there that can kind of step up and bring Cincinnati to at least a serviceable level. That's why I say a lot of people like to say, well, Cincinnati's going to be terrible. I don't know if they're going to be terrible, but they're obviously not going to be as good as they were with Luke Fickell.
Well, I mean, they did hire Luke Fickell. I mean, I'm not telling you that they're going to be down forever. I just think it's a long climb.
Yeah.
I think it is already a long climb when you don't have the level and the caliber of football player that you need to compete in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of these 4 schools has it. And I think that Houston has gone leaps and bounds to add it. I think UCF the same, but I think it is a lot of work to get yourself to a point where you can compete at the mid-level even of the Big 12. I think that is asking an exceptional amount out of these 4 new teams. So we'll see. I mean, yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
Lopes fan Gabe, what's up with you? He says, hit the like button. Yes, please hit the like button as you watch the show. Joseph Melendez says, I really think that the Big 12 versus Pac-12 argument was a lot closer last year than it's given credit for. Oh, I think it absolutely was. And I think we've gone back and forth on this, but this is the other issue here is this is also about the lack of respect that you give to a Utah. Like Utah, in 99% of this country, nobody watches Utah Ute football. Yet they're back-to-back Pac-12 champions, and they've been to the Rose Bowl 2 times in a row, right? So can they do it again? Everybody's like, oh, USC's a behemoth. Well, who did USC, lose to keep them out of the playoff last year?
Yeah.
The Utah Utes multiple times.
Yeah, who made Caleb Williams cry?
Multiple times, right? So we can sit here and we can go back and forth. The Utah Utes are going to have one of the top 5 defenses in the country.
Yes.
And nobody's going to know about it, right? Because everybody's going to be talking about USC. USC's got to eventually at some point beat Utah if they want to reach their aspirations. And we'll see if they do that.
Yeah.
We'll see if they do that. But I think you cannot continue to sleep on programs just because you disrespect the Pac-12. And I think there's a lot of that going on. And I think when you look at the Pac-12, I don't think people understand, not even Utah. How good is Oregon State this year?
Better than Cincinnati.
I don't think people recognize how good Oregon State is. I think Cal is going to be very, very competitive. I think when you are fighting for your job, you tend to find more talent than you had before.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if Wilcox finds more talent. But I think Washington State's going to win games. Are they a world beater? Certainly not. Are they on par with Oregon State? Certainly not. But let's not forget again, Oregon State beat Oregon last year to end their dreams. And, frankly, I don't see Oregon State and Jonathan Smith backsliding at all.
Yeah.
At all. Nate Davis says Utah makes the Big 12 a lot better. Well, you'd have to get them there first. GMAX says Pac was good in football last year. The 5-6 years before overall conference wasn't that good. The last 15 years, Cincinnati as a program, as far as competitiveness, is better than 10 of the current Pac-12 teams. I completely disagree. You can't compare apples to oranges and then show up in the college football playoff and get absolutely boat raced because of the talent that you play all year long and the damage that Power 5 conferences and their players take all season long when you are playing in a G5 conference. It's the same thing I say about Houston, that 20-7 over the last 2 years. Well, a lot of that is they didn't get their ass kicked in a P5 conference.
Yes.
The way half the teams in the Pac-12 did.
Yes.
Right? Now, was SC a juggernaut? Certainly not. They didn't recruit well. They certainly, and that's not even true. Clay Helton recruited just fine. He just didn't develop anybody.
Yes.
Right? But let's not pretend that, again, Cincinnati, BYU, and BYU is a little different because they were independent, but Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston were playing the same level of competition USC was playing because they weren't, and they're not. And I think, unfortunately, you're going to find that out. It is a harsh reality when you join a P5 from an AAC, as Jake just absolutely molests the microphone. It is a harsh reality when you make that leap. It's very difficult.
Yeah, no, I think anytime you're changing conferences, anytime you're moving up, I should say, while changing conferences, I think it's difficult. I think it's not easy. I think that there are expectations, and I think that you have to do things better than you used to do them, whether you're filling in for Luke Fickell or you're finding a new quarterback or whatever the case may be. And I, again, everyone wants to caveat what the Pac-12 did last year. I don't really care what they did 5-6 years ago. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right? Like the Pac-12 was really good last year, and they needed to be really good in a time when the TV deal is letting them down massively. And I think that's really all that matters. Like 5-6 years ago doesn't matter, right? All that matters is that Luke Fickell's gone. All that matters is that, your talent left and you got to replace it. And that's what I think people want to just skip over. It's like, hey, you got to take the 3-star kid and turn him into a 5-star kid if you want to be national championship good. And I don't know that, as many programs in the Big 12 are doing that as in the Pac-12.
Yep, I agree with that. Y-Zone says Colorado was worse than West Virginia, by the way. Sure. Okay, great. I think what happens this year is West Virginia better than or worse than Colorado?
I mean, I can tell you who's got more expectations, and that's certainly not West Virginia.
I would agree with that. Conundrum says Venables is hiding somewhere, not for long. Not for long. Connor Johnson says, yeah, Pac was down there for a minute. Glad to have it back. Jeremiah Champion, I wonder if the Big 12 scraps adding Western schools and looks east. No, not in any way, shape, or form. I don't think there's any way that they scrap that. I don't. Connor Johnson, is Sitake the best new head coach? Well, that remains to be seen. I think I look at Dana Holgorsen, who I think does a really nice job at Houston. Gus is an interesting character. What that looks like, we may never know. I don't know. Is
yeah.
Is Gus a long-term fit at UCF? We'll see. I mean, best new coach. I think Kalani's a hell of a coach. I'm a huge Kalani Sitake guy.
No, it's a results-based business, right? So, I mean, yeah, is Kalani as skilled as any guy out here? Yeah, absolutely. Is he as capable? Yeah. Do they win? Well, that remains to be seen.
We'll find out. Leipold to Northwestern. Could be. Northwestern. I think Northwestern is going to be a very difficult job for the next 2 years. Yeah. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult, and I don't know, because bad things are going to happen at Northwestern. We are far from the bottom. Far, far, far from the bottom on that one. I think it is going to take years to understand what really happened at Northwestern, because I don't think we know who's telling the truth and who's not. I think it is going to be years. And if that is the case, that's going to be a really bad job, and I think they're going to have a hard time attracting talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
J-Rod says, is it time for a Bucked Up bar? Yes, it is. It is past time. Bucked Up, the official energy provider of the Monty Show. We love our guys at Bucked Up. Always. We love our guys at Bucked Up. I've told you that. And if you haven't tried Bucked Up yet, if you're new on the show today, maybe you're just tuning in because of Big 12 football media days, you should get to buckedup.com and check out their bars. The Buck bars are the best protein bars I've ever had, and I hate protein bars. I legit cannot. I have struggled to find a protein bar I like, and
right.
The Buck Bar has changed that. And I've told you guys, whether it is, the almost 40 pounds I've lost now, or the nutrition changes I've made, the better sleeping, more energy. Bucked Up Energy has been a game changer. And if you get into the description of any of our shows, you're going to see you can get free bars, you can get free buckshot, which is fantastic. Clean, long-lasting energy that's only 100 milligrams of caffeine, which you love. So Bucked Up Energy, the official energy provider of the Monty Show. Use promo code Monty20 to get 20% off at checkout. Bryce Martin, Big 12 got ripped off with Fickell leaving. He would have helped elevate the level of coaching in the league even more. You don't replace that guy.
Yeah, but I mean,
you don't.
Ripped off. Like, I mean, the guy is going to make decisions that are best for him. I mean, ultimately, your program is, led by your head coach, and certainly he sets the standard. But at the same time, like, there has to be a process in place to continue on.
Yeah, I mean, ripped off, I think you mean a loss. Like, it's a bummer. Like, yeah, you got ripped off because you're never going to see Luke Fickell coach in that league. I agree with that. I think Luke is a hell of a football coach, proven time and again. His ability to program build, his ability to develop talent. I think Wisconsin's going to become a major force, because why would we think anything else with Luke Fickell at the helmet, Camp Randall? I think they're in for a big boom. I really do. I love the guy. The Big Lubbock says, I disagree. Colorado, Stanford, and Cal could not beat West Virginia. Okay. Have you, in all honesty, have you watched Cal play football in the last 2 years? Because my guess is you have not.
So wait, we're sitting here and saying, who does Cal and Stanford play? Who does West Virginia play? Cal and Stanford are playing some of the best teams of the two conferences. If we were to put the Pac-12 and the Big 12 together, like, they're playing better talent than you are.
Look, the Big Lubbock, with all due respect, this is just you being biased against the Pac-12, because I'm telling you now that Washington, Oregon, and Utah could all walk into the Big 12 today and win the conference. Could do that right now. And you're going to say, oh, that's ridiculous. Okay. How am I wrong? Are they not talented? All three of them are 3-4 deep. Are they as talented as Texas? No, but nobody is. Are they more? Do they have a coach that is better than Sark? Well, yeah. I think Kyle Whittingham has proven to be a better head football coach than Steve Sarkisian has. I don't even know that that's objectionable or arguable. So the idea that USC can't walk into the Big 12 today and win the conference is crazy. Like, I'm all it tells me is that you're not watching the Pac-12. You're just making blanket statements based on box scores.
Yeah.
That's what that tells me. And we could all do that. We can all, hang out and say, hey, man, they were terrible and they were terrible and they were terrible. What on earth gives you the idea that West Virginia can compete with Oregon, Utah, Washington, USC, Arizona? Because Arizona is a vastly improved football team.
Yep.
So again, explain to me what makes you think that West Virginia can compete with them. I'll wait. I mean, go right ahead. Because it tells me you just don't know. That's what that tells me. Greg Hale says Utah's Whittingham is a great example of what great coaches do.
Yeah.
Program builder. Clint Moses, 0 big splash hires in the Big 12 this offseason. Well, I mean, I don't know. You need big splashes when you're bringing in Kalani and you're bringing in Malzahn and you're bringing in. I mean, look at the level of coach that is coming in. I mean, Dana Holgorsen's nothing to shake a stick at.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought in 3 really high level coaches. Let's see. Truck stop Gumby crying Caleb. Could be. Oklahoma State is going to hinder a lot. Oregon State is going to hinder a lot on Uyunglele. Yeah, DJ's got to have a year.
Yep.
I mean, when you get run out of Clemson, that's not a good sign for you.
No.
And he was given every opportunity to be the next big deal at Clemson, and that just didn't happen. And now he's at Oregon State, and we're just supposed to buy in wholeheartedly. Yeah, I'm not ready to do that.
Yeah.
I am not ready to do that.
Yeah, Oregon State is, Oregon State needs them to play well for them to get to the top end. Without them, they're probably an 8-win team just on defense alone. You're probably an 8-win team. To get to the top end and get 10, 11 wins, you're going to need them, no doubt.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Bo Nix owns the Utah Utes. Oh, great, Duck season's back. Bryce Martin, it's the whole reason that most of the country doesn't care about the Pac, because you're guaranteed to watch a Pac team fall at the end and not get to the college football playoff. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, Oregon losing to Oregon State last year was absolutely devastating for the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Because I think Oregon would have got to the college football playoff. I mean, now you'd have had to beat SC or Utah, right? But in that long list of things that had to happen for Utah, every one of them happened.
Yeah.
And mainly because Utah made its own luck. They didn't get any breaks. They made their own breaks. But, yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. No, Nick's better than Caleb Williams. Laughable. Bo Nix is not better than Caleb Williams.
No.
It's not even a conversation. You're talking about Caleb Williams, who is the best two-way player in college football, the reigning and probably repeat Heisman Trophy winner. He has got a loaded offense and now a loaded defense. Like, it's just, come on now. And Duck season, please, man. I look to you. You're welcome here, but let's not get crazy and make ridiculous statements about how Caleb Williams is overrated.
It's tired.
Yeah, it's
tired.
very tired. Lopes Fan Gabe, tell me you're a Monty Show casual without telling me you're a Monty Show casual. Use program instead of program in your comments.
It's true.
Exactly right. Exactly right. The Big Lubbock says UCF could beat the bottom 5 of the pack, and they could beat the top 5 of the Big 12. I mean,
That's what I mean. Like, it's just.
What are we arguing about?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that there's a lot of, like, that's a lot of bias in that for sure.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I agree with Blazed Bunny. Caleb is so much better than Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a running back playing quarterback.
Yeah.
And the problem for Oregon with Bo Nix is he's on the clock. It was a miracle, the style he played, that he made it that long. The injury was inevitable. It's unforgivable to go to Corvallis and lose. It's unforgivable. The best teams in the country don't do that. Not at that late juncture. They simply don't do that. Oregon did that because Oregon was a flawed football team all year long. And it's great you beat up on the likes of BYU. That's fantastic. Fantastic. You lost the only game that mattered. That was the Oregon State game.
Yep.
And until Bo Nix shows he can be healthy and perform at a high level, which he's never shown that, not one time. Not one time has he shown that. For an entire season, Oregon's going to be stuck in his limitations.
Yes.
Plain and simple, it's a quarterback game, man. You're going to be stuck in his limitations. Tom, what's up? Duck season, let's all come together around a disgust of USC and Caleb Williams. I mean, you don't have to listen. And again, I think we say this all the time with USC. I mean, we've talked about this with you and Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
You don't have to like USC, but you will respect them.
Yeah. I mean, I like Lincoln's a perfect example. In my opinion, yeah, is Lincoln a touch overrated? Yeah, touch, but there's no denying. I mean, he leads teams to deep into the season. I think he has an ability to create Heisman Trophy caliber quarterbacks. Like he does certain things really well and at a really high level.
Yeah, he does.
And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think that, obviously losing the way they lost a little bit at the end of the year last year was disappointing for Lincoln. There's no doubt about that. But I think this year, obviously trying to meet expectations. So to me, I just think it's I mean, you can hate on Caleb Williams and USC and build yourself a little campfire and make some marshmallows, but you're not like, you're just being biased about it. I mean, there's no doubt the guy is the best quarterback in the country. I mean, that's just not in dispute.
Yeah, I do. And by the way, I would also caution you that Kenny Dillingham's no longer at Oregon. And I think that is a big one. That is a big one. Bryce Martin, the top of the pack is higher than the Big 12 outside of Texas and OU. I think the Pac-12 is just a little deeper. It's got the top is certainly. I think the top of the Pac-12 is better than the top of the Big 12.
Yeah.
But the bottom half of this conference, you guys, if you look at the bottom half of the Big 12, dude, again, we talked about this on the first show today. Iowa State needs to have a year. West Virginia, I think Kansas is probably 2 wins better, but Kansas was 3-6 in conference last year, right? Oklahoma was 3-6 in conference. Baylor, we've talked almost all day long about the expectations at Baylor with the improvement on that offensive line. And I look at Oklahoma State that was a 7-6 team. 14 new guys out of the portal, 18 out, 14 in, 7-6. Only 2 starters returning on defense.
Yeah.
A defensive coordinator that doesn't have great experience. Right? You look at the bottom of this conference now. I also think Texas Tech is really good. I also think that TCU is still good. K-State's still good. Texas is arguably the most talented, deepest team in the country with really good coaching.
Yeah.
That's a good conference. But dudes, if we go look at the Pac-12, and again, I don't even know that this is arguable. But if you look at SC, Washington, Oregon, Utah, those 4 teams can beat any team in the country. Any Saturday afternoon, they can beat any team in the country. I don't even know that it's that close. So when we sit here and we compare and we contrast and we talk and we get into this stuff, man, those 4 teams are world beaters. That doesn't include Oregon State. That doesn't include UCLA, right? I don't know what UCLA is. I think you're going through a major change at quarterback. It's a huge question mark. We could talk about that. But Arizona is absolutely a better football team than the 5-7 they showed last year. There is no question about that. They are a better football team than they were last year. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that plays out. How'd we do, Jake?
Much better. Oregon State will be joining us in
Oregon
about
State?
10 minutes. Yeah.
Who's
or
Oregon?
Oklahoma State. Sorry.
So Oregon State's a
Sorry.
Big 12.
Yeah. See,
What do
you guys got me all messed up now.
Are you
see?
okay? So wait, are you going to break some news? So Oregon State is joining
Do you hate me? Is that
No,
what
but
it is?
I mean, you smell, but that's not really the point. Anyway, so did you say Oklahoma State will be joining the show shortly?
Yes, it will. They will.
The whole school, it will?
Yes.
The entire university.
Yeah.
We don't have enough mics for that.
I
dude.
know.
How you holding up, man?
I'm okay. A little tired. A little
Yeah.
warm in here right now.
It is. Well, no, it's not a little warm in here. It's a lot warm.
It's a lot warm in here right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to go refresh some water or something there?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, good. I really, 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 really want to talk to Colin Oliver. I am a big fan of Colin Oliver's, and I am very curious how the 3-3-5 is going to impact him. That's going to be very interesting. I think Preston Wilson, not the outfielder, but the offensive lineman. See, Preston. There's a baseball reference. I threw in a Miami Marlins.
Right. That was I see your effort there. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Preston Wilson, I think, is a very interesting guy. So there's a bunch of Ohio or.
Excuse me.
Wait, do you want to break? No, I'm kidding. There's a bunch of Oklahoma State dudes rolling around. We're looking forward to talking to those guys. Bryce Martin says Jake just needs a lot of bucked up.
I do. Well, that's the other thing. I haven't had any caffeine today, but it's fine.
It is hot.
Yeah.
It is hot in here today. J-Rod, I really want you to talk to Gundy. We
want to talk to Gundy, but Gundy does Gundy.
He does like 40-minute interviews talking about fishing.
Yeah.
But they apparently had some travel issues getting in, I'm just saying. Let's see. Tom said, hey, let's relax on air conditioning. Hey, hottest earth temps of all recorded history. It's some adversity.
Hey, you're not wrong. The AC units are facing some adversity, but, got to get it done, right?
The AC units are taking an L today,
Mhm.
although I'm feeling breeze, so that's always a good thing. Yeah. It is cooling off for sure. The Big Lubbock says Sark quit and left the building.
Apparently. I don't know that he quit. I just think his window closed.
Yeah, that could be. Patrick Bourne says talking about truck stops. Exactly.
Right.
Now, look at the what's the Q&A or the QA or
QT.
the Q? Okay. Yeah, we went to a QT today. By the way, speaking of quality convenience stores, one of the few things I miss about living in the valley of death known as Phoenix is QTs. QT convenience store, gas stations.
Bomb.
That's where it's at, my friends. That is
it's no Maverick, but it'll do.
Well, Maverick's better. Maverick's the best one I've ever been to.
Yeah.
But QT, man, QT is where it is at.
Yes.
Let's see. Alexander Smitley, 3-3-5 works great for K-State. And who went to the NFL was the edge role that Colin Oliver could be in. Yeah, I think the 3-3-5 is really interesting if you have the talent to play it. But they've got 2 returning starters on defense.
Yep.
2. That's 9.
It's not good, dude. That's good.
Colin Oliver, I mean, he's a guy that you're like, oh, well, okay. That's huge. But, man, it is really difficult when you're changing systems and changing D coordinators again. And the continuity is a word that we use a lot. And I totally understand that. On defense, you've got to have a command of the system.
Yes.
And when you're going from your hand in the ground to outside playmaker, which Colin Oliver is going to do, I think there are some challenges in that because you really have to trust the guys that are around you. You have to really have an idea of what your three techniques are going to do. And you have to understand, hey, what are my corners and what are my inside linebackers capable of?
Yeah.
How much room do I have? Like, there's a real command that you have to have in a 3-3-5 as a guy that's going to be given a lot of responsibility and a lot of freedom. I think that's a huge question mark for Oklahoma State is how does that system change happen? How do your players mature in a new system with another new defensive coordinator? Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing with a 3-3-5 is you have to trust each other, right? You have to be able to trust that the other guy is going to be in the right spot. And I think that, that's why you don't see a ton of 3-3-5 because you got to be disciplined in the way you go about playing that scheme. And I think that's why you see much more just traditional 4-3. And hey, if this particular linebacker has the skill set to kind of be, a rover, sometimes going to pressure, sometimes going to drop. Yeah, can he cover? I mean, that's why I think you see much more 4-3, and then some particular players in certain schemes are given freedom to roam and do what they need to do versus running the 3-3-5 and having it be a systemic, basically a system of trust.
Having it be who you are.
Yeah.
Having it be what you're about. Like, because again, that 3-3-5 outside guy essentially is a defensive end that's now standing up.
Yes.
And you think guys like, the Khalil Macks or the Leonard Floyds, or you look at the hybrids in the NFL. That's the problem with these 3-4, 3-3-5 schemes is you have to put a lot of responsibility into your linebackers and ends.
Yeah.
And it's not every play, especially in this league now with the skill position that's coming in. I mean, if you think about what a defensive end against Texas is going to have to deal with. If you look at the depth that Texas brings to the table, and you look at like a Jatavian Sanders, or you look at names like that, dude, you're asking these guys a lot.
Yes.
You're asking these guys to do a lot. If he's got to turn his hips and run to cover one of the premier tight ends in football, dude, that's asking a guy to do a lot of work. And if you're not capable, trust me, you're going to get schemed to death, man, because offensive coordinators in the Big 12 are meticulous. This is a league that matchups are critical and they are exposed, and you get exposed if you can't do that job. And I think, again, I'll just go back to Texas with all that talent. They're going to pick apart defenses. They have the talent and the skill position talent to look at a defense's weakness and go and attack that. And I think that's in this league. That's where Texas is going to win. Now, the question is, what happens at Texas against Alabama when Alabama doesn't have that obvious weakness or can't cover a flat, or the entire left side of their defense struggles because they're one deep, one corner, or they lost all their secondary in the transfer portal? Well, that shit doesn't happen at Alabama.
Yeah.
Right? Nick Saban doesn't lose 18 players and bring in 14 players.
Right.
That just
He's too busy developing the 3-star kid he brought in.
And putting him in the draft.
Yeah.
Like, that does not happen. So it's a different, and this is the different conversation about Texas versus everybody else. They're talented enough to do whatever they need to do to win, but will they? And I think they will. Pete Kwiatkowski is a hell of a coach, man.
Yeah.
You look at his defenses before the whole Jimmy Lake fiasco at Washington. You look at the job that Pete Kwiatkowski has done over the history of his career. That guy has put out some really good defenses. He was the defensive guy at Washington. He was the guy that deserved that credit. Jimmy Lake tore that place apart, and Pete Kwiatkowski wound up going to Texas.
Yeah.
And I think if you could flip the script on that, you'd rather keep Chris Peterson. Jimmy Lake was an abject failure at Washington.
No doubt.
Jake, that haircut makes you Kate va bien.
Okay, I'm gonna take that as a compliment, and we're gonna roll along.
Yeah, porque. Aaron Wilson, Texas Tech will run Big 12 Mexico. Maybe.
Right.
JM 3-3-5 fine until they face SEC teams. Could be. DSCW says Jake's haircut looking fly. God.
Yeah, I can't help it. I mean, I just
Yeah, I'll just be over here fucking off. I'll just be over here. Nobody cares.
I think you should. Honestly, I think you should, but it's fine.
Yeah, I didn't get a haircut either. It's fine.
Right.
Monty Oza Ribeye says Jake's hair is looking sharp. Truck Stop Gumby, it's a compliment. That's great. So glad your hair looks good.
Thanks, man.
Patrick Boren, 3-3-5 like against Ole Miss last 2 years. Well, I'm just saying it is.
I'm gonna go and try and get Dana real quick from Houston.
Yeah, why don't you do that? That would be awesome. Thank you. There's just now guys are starting to show up. Now we're starting to run around and we're starting to get guys, and let's hope that we can run some bros down. But I don't know. I think Oklahoma State is so critical to this conference, and I'm probably making too much out of it. I think Oklahoma State is critical to this conference. G-Max says, I lost my hair at 18. Yeah, I'm trying. Let's see. Old Texas Tech man. Nobody cares about the Texas Shorthorns, dude. Not all teams are weak on defense. Well, yeah, that's true, because Texas isn't weak on defense either. I don't know how to break it to you, which is hysterical to me. You're like, oh, well, they're weak on defense. Oh, they are? Really? We'll see about that. We'll see about that. Jeff Woodworth says, you guys look like you're at a fancy truck stop. I don't know. Is this a fancy? Jake, they say it looks like we're at a fancy truck stop, right? Let's pull out. Okay, that came out.
Oh, dude, it's a family program, dude.
Easy. This is a hell of a truck stop, though, isn't it? Check it out, boys.
Beautiful.
Jarrah World. There it is. Hey, there's Coach Leipold right there. How are we looking for Dana?
Coach Leipold.
How are we looking for Mr. Holgorsen?
Excellent. 2:40, he will join us.
2:40, he will join
about
us.
30 minutes from
coming
now.
up in about 30 minutes. Dana Holgorsen.
Yep.
Head coach at the University of Houston. I think it is. I think it's a very interesting conversation about the Big 12 versus the Pac-12. I'm fascinated by it, and I know that we all love to. I know we all love to go around and debate and wonder and argue about it. But I'm telling you, man, this Big 12 conference is, depending on how good Houston's very interesting. If Dana has a year at Houston, and you're able to put together a group of guys and you're able to win some games that most people think you won't win. I mean, he's an accomplished guy. That's a smart football coach. So I'm actually very interested to see what Houston is. BYU is a team that I don't know that any of us have a true grasp on. We talked to Cody Epps earlier on the show, and I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how Keaton Slovis adjusts. Leaving USC was one thing, but now leaving Pitt is another thing. And I think it's really interesting that when you have a guy in Keaton Slovis that a lot of people think could be a program quarterback, I don't believe that Keaton Slovis is a program quarterback until I see it. And listen, I understand that A-Rod and again, Cody Epps, I think, is absolutely an NFL caliber wide receiver. And I have no doubt that he's got everything that he needs there, Keaton Slovis, to succeed. But will he? That's the biggest question I have, because they're going to be exponentially better on defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Keaton Slovis is someone who's had a unique path, and some would say that, he's one of these guys that likes to flip-flop around programs, and, didn't work out for him here, so he went there, and didn't work out for him there, so he went here, and I think that that's what he's still trying to figure out, because I'm not so sure that, he's even a serviceable NFL backup quarterback as a talent, and I think he has a lot to prove with that. I mean, he does. I mean, again, you were at SC, you were at Pitt, you were at major, opportunity.
And you had a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And you didn't take advantage of that, and so we all sit here and we talk about, hey, Texas, or hey, TCU's going to backslide. Well, that's all well and good, but those guys have a lot of proven talent. Like if you look at the quarterback situation at any program in any conference, that's going to go a long way to determining your success and failure as a program. I mean, it is. Pick your favorite program. If you are an Oregon fan, what happens the moment that Bo Nix goes down? I don't know either.
Yeah, everyone says, uh-oh.
What happens at Washington if Penix Jr. goes down? Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a situation at Oregon State with DJ Uiagalelei. What if he doesn't pan out? Yeah, I don't know either. You look at Texas, whether it's Ewers or Manning. You look at Baylor with Blake Shapin or Donovan Smith and Lucas Coley at Houston. It's just a matter of, like, if Alan Bowman's not the guy at Oregon State or at Oklahoma State, now what? If he's not the guy, now what?
I don't know. That's the name of the game. I mean, that's why I think, everyone, like in the draft, right? Like in the NFL draft, that everyone's like, oh, well, Bryce Young is, kind of small. What happens if he gets hurt? Like, can he stand up to it? I mean, that's what we see in the college game all the time, and I think that's the challenge with it, man. Can you stay healthy? Can you be durable? Can you actually play well? That's my concern for Keaton Slovis. That's my concern for a lot of these guys. Can you actually, live up to that certain bar that you need to lead your team to the promised land? And not everybody can.
Yeah, I think that's a huge question mark. So we can sit here and we can go around, but it's one of the major things I want to ask Dana Holgorsen about from Houston. Like, you have a huge quarterback battle at Houston that is going to determine success and failure in the first year in this league. Old Texas Tech man says Quinn Ewers is overrated. Well, I don't think we know that. I think he's excellent against great teams.
Yeah, big game player.
I mean, we're preparing for the show today, and Jake's like, yeah, he's a big game player, period, until he's not. And I don't disagree with that sentiment. I think you're exactly right.
Look at his numbers against the best teams in the country.
Awesome.
Puts up numbers.
He was excellent. So
now, that doesn't mean he's good in one possession games, but against top tier programs, yeah, he puts out numbers.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. Let's see. Todd James. Oklahoma State is having a quarterback competition. What do you mean? What else? I'm a bit concerned we aren't actually looking at these teams' depths, dude. You're having a quarterback competition, but are you really? I mean, honest to goodness, if I think Alan Bowman's your guy. Honest to goodness, I think Alan Bowman's your guy. I don't know any other way that you can even argue that. I think that it's one of those deals where, guys like, Brennan Presley or Preston Wilson, who's here as well. Like, you have guys, but you had 18 dudes roll out in the portal and 14 came in. That's a huge ask, dude. Like, that is a huge ask. And I don't know exactly how all that will pan out, because it's very rare that the program that can add 14 guys with 18 going out and win at a high level, dude. How show me, because SC didn't do it last year. SC added a bunch of dudes last year and lost to Utah again and again. You look at Colorado this year. Is there anybody who thinks the 780 million guys he added in the portal is going to add up to bowl eligibility in Boulder? Honest to God, ask yourself that question. Is it a foregone conclusion that Colorado, with all those dudes that came in the portal, is going to a bowl game? I don't know how you can say that. In fact, I know you can't say that. So I look at what's going on at Oklahoma State, and there's a lot of change. And I think when you look at this conference and you look at how good Texas Tech is going to be, and I think Kansas is going to take a step up. I'd be stunned if Baylor backslid again. That would be shocking. Like, you were 12-2 in 2021. What the heck was that last year? Right? And now you got significantly better with Clark Barrington on the offensive line through the transfer portal. You got to believe that Grimey is going to have that offense rocking and rolling in Waco. Like, I got to believe they take a step up. And then the question is, Alan Bowman should probably be your starting quarterback. And that's a conversation, obviously, right? But you got to believe. I mean, if you're not going to go with Bowman, don't you just go with Zane Flores? I would think so. Don't you want continuity and a guy that'll be there, right? Like, I mean, he is a guy. Zane's obviously a true freshman, right? But the offense can probably be held up to a certain extent, by Gordon and Nixon. But, man, you better find a quarterback. You had better find a quarterback, Todd, because if you don't have a quarterback, dude, that's problematic. What has Bowman done up to this point? Nothing. But isn't that the question? But this is, again, I go back to what Houston's dealing with, right? Donovan Smith and Lucas Coley. Lucas Coley is a guy you know, but Donovan Smith was not terrible at Tech. And I think Donovan Smith is probably the guy that you want. Every coach that has a QB battle has a guy he wants to win that job. Absolutely, they do. You know, who would you start? That's a huge question to me. You know, I look at these teams that are down in this league, like Oklahoma State. I think Houston's quarterback situation is interesting. I look at Baylor. What has Blake Shapin done? He won the job in spring, but is Blake Shapin a guy you're like, oh, hot damn, we got our dude? No. If he lost his job week 1, would anybody be surprised? You would not, because they've upgraded around him and they put himself in a position to succeed. He's likely never going to be the guy that carries a program. Is he Stetson Bennett? No, he's not. No, he's not. So if Blake Shapin's not the guy, what has he done and what is he doing there? I don't know. That's a huge question. Huge question. Todd says I'd start Rangel, Monty. Well, Rangel's an interesting cat, dude. We've talked about this earlier in the show. I think any way you go here, it's a risk. And you know what, man? I think Blake Shapin is probably the best example of this. But if you look at, Oklahoma State's situation, I don't know that there's a right answer, dude. I'm not trying to give you a cop out, and hopefully we'll ask Coach Gundy about that. But I just don't know. I don't know what Garrett brings that. I think Bowman's the guy you want to win the job. Frankly, let's just be honest about that. I think Bowman's the guy you want to win the job, or I would go with the freshman, because what do you have to lose at this point? I mean, your defense. Dude, I'm not buying that your defense is going to be good. I am not buying that. I think that there's too many changes there. But it's going to be really interesting to see exactly how that works out and what that looks like. But again, that's all opinion. I look at Garrett Rangel and I say to myself, hey, man, he's a real player. Obviously, he's a Texan from Frisco, and he can play. And, I just don't know that is the guy you know who's mediocre better than the guy you don't know. And I would tell you they are. In college, Mike Gundy's got to win, dude. He's got to win. And you know what? Obviously with Rangel, he's an in-state MVP. He's a guy that can really throw the football, but we're probably too deep on Oklahoma State. But my point is, if Bowman's there and he can compete and he can win the job, I would do that. I would absolutely do that. Hi, Jake. Jake's back without a player.
Yeah, this is frustrating.
Why do you say?
Because people don't do their jobs. That's why.
Well, that's okay. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, thanks.
So update our masses.
We were supposed to get Preston Wilson from Oklahoma State. And dude just isn't.
There's Brett Yormark right there.
Yeah. Dude didn't do what he said he was going to do, which was bring him over. So.
Okay. Well, do you want to go stand on top of him? I don't know what to tell you. It's all good. I mean, it's good. Let's see. Bryce Martin. Let's keep rolling with comments. Appreciate you guys. There's a reason Bowman didn't make it at Michigan. That's okay. Not buying because he's older, he's better, much like Slovis for BYU. No, I think that Bowman's got to stay healthy. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. You can't play this game injured. I don't know. Go through camp, see what happens. You have young and inexperienced guys behind him. And that's scary when you, at Oklahoma State, don't have a defense and you're changing systems and you're bringing in an inexperienced coordinator. That's a little scary for me. So I'm going with the experienced quarterback, because if you don't have defensive continuity and you're going to go with an inexperienced quarterback, you're asking to have a 4 or 5 win season. You're asking to have one of the worst seasons. When's the last time Mike Gundy wasn't bowl eligible? Right? I can't see him doing that.
Yeah.
I can't see him doing that. That's my issue with it. Wet Blanket says you called them Oregon State too many times. Okay. Well, that's fine. Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that's where I would be at with it.
Mhm.
I just think that's the way that I would handle it. So, that's just my opinion. Yeah, go get him. It's all good. So, Jake's being crabby right now. My man needs to get some stuff. But yeah, listen, I think if you think about that with Mike Gundy's not a rookie trying to figure stuff out. That much is absolutely for certain. So I think he's going to make a right decision. I think you can believe in that. I think you can. Let's see. Y-Zone says Bowman is better. He's the starter. No competition whatsoever. We're going to find out. I would guess that's the way that we go. And frankly, if I'm a fan, if I'm a Poke fan, I would probably do that same thing. I'd be hoping for that. Let's see. Laura Weiss, how are you? We had a crazy thunderstorm the night before last. Wind and lightning was insane. She said at Paxton. Really? Okay. Donovan Smith was terrible at Tech. I don't think he was terrible. I don't think he was terrible. I think there was. We'll see. We'll see. Your past doesn't matter nearly as much as your future. If he wins the job at Houston, I don't think he was terrible at Tech. I really don't think he was terrible. Was he what you wanted him to be? No. Certainly he was not. Todd James, let's also not forget Oklahoma State has a considerably easier schedule this year. Absolutely. We've talked about that ad nauseum today. I don't think there's any doubt that the outs that Oklahoma State gets just by not playing Texas alone, that's a huge one. That is a huge one. And I think, again, just my opinion, I think that's a huge luxury for Oklahoma State. I absolutely do. But again, the schedule doesn't matter. You can play anybody you want. If you don't have the right quarterback at the right space in the right time, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Paxton says, Monty, a 6-6 Gundy on the hot seat? I don't know. Is Gundy on the hot seat? I would hate to think that. I mean, that guy's done a lot for you. His worst years, he's bowl eligible. How many universities would like to be, yeah, in our worst year, we want to be bowl eligible? I mean, Mike Gundy is a hell of a football coach. And he's a guy, I think, who's earned the right to rebuild his program. Now, changing defensive coordinators again and changing defensive systems again, there should be some concern. 18 guys leaving the program in the portal, there should be some concern. Absolutely. Jeremiah says Jake's not having it today. No, you got to be super aggressive here, and Jake by nature is a very nice person. Patrick Bourne says Jake's got a hard job. Once Big 12 gets more familiar, you will get easier access. Well, it's not even that. I mean, everybody tells you, yeah, we're doing it. And it's just like the squirrel mentality. You have to go camp on guys and say, hey, yeah, let's go. Like Texas gave us their dudes, no problem. It's not a matter of getting access. It's super busy here. Super busy. Laura Weiss says Smith did fine in Lubbock, just a turnover machine. Yes. And he needs to be coached out of that. Absolutely. Conundrum. Here's a hint. Leave Jake and Monty, go grab these guys, these gas heads. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, man. It's not easy. Wet blanket. Oklahoma State is 7-3 against Texas in the last decade. Yeah, they are. But again, Texas hasn't won the Big 12 since 2009? How is that even possible that Texas has not won the Big 12 since 2009? I mean, that in general is ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that Texas has not won this league. I mean, has not won this league since 2009. I mean, it's brutal. So we'll see if that changes. I don't know that. I don't know. How do they lose the league this year? And I'm being serious. Let's talk about Texas real quick. How do they lose the league this year? I mean, it would have to be catastrophic. It'd have to be catastrophic. Something terrible would have to happen. It'd have to be the San Francisco 49ers quarterback situation.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay.
Jake doesn't want to say it out loud.
Apparently, Okie State had, and we were hearing about this earlier when they first got in, they had massive plane issues,
Yes.
apparently, this morning.
2 hours late.
So, they will be back down. All the teams basically come in. They were supposed to be in to do morning interviews, which they missed because of the plane. So now they got to go up and do team breakouts on the stage, and then they will be back. And he was like, we will get you somebody before the day's over. So better than no, but not what I want.
Jake's too nice. That's what he's telling you. He is too nice. You know what?
Nothing. It's a frustrating job. It's
a thankless, frustrating job.
People just do their jobs. Good things happen.
Yeah.
People don't do their jobs. Bad things happen.
Yeah. So, which is fine. We are live at Big 12 Football Media Days here on the Monty Show. Thanks to our friends at BladeHQ.com. BladeHQ.com, the best knives by the best knife makers. And I'm telling you guys, their website is a difference maker, because I know we all have frustrated shopping experiences or negative, bad, where execution's a problem. Not at BladeHQ.com. At BladeHQ.com, they built their website, including the software, the processes, everything that's in that website, and the processes on that website make it easier for you to shop over 15,000 different blades at BladeHQ.com. 15,000 different blades at BladeHQ.com. Whether you need a folding knife, a hunting knife, a fishing knife, a utility knife, a Leatherman's tool, a baton, a flashlight, clothing, outdoorsman, again, if you're looking to get your daily sale at BladeHQ.com, every single day, they have a great highlighted item that's on sale. Knock it down, BladeHQ.com. If you're a hunter and you need supplies, you need clothing, you need utilities, they've got everything you need to be a survivalist, to be a hunter, to be a collector of knives. They have built such a great community of knife collectors because they have quality, they have unique pieces, they have one-off pieces, something that's at everybody's price point. BladeHQ.com. Support local businesses. I'm telling you, it's awesome that BladeHQ.com is headquartered in Utah, but they are a huge brand. They ship nationally and internationally at BladeHQ.com, as there's an influx of talent all of a sudden around. Looks like Baylor's coming back down to the floor. Dave Aranda is on the big stage. So if you'd like to go chase down some Baylor dudes, we can do that. Absolutely. As there's a bunch of people standing around. But let's keep getting your comments in here while we wait for the guys to come over. Fanboy Prime says Big 12 handing out easy schedules, hoping anyone but Texas or OU wins the conference. I think that's completely backward, because one, nobody here has said that or even hinted at that. I think when you listen to the comments about Texas and Oklahoma today here at Big 12 Media Days, what you're seeing is there's a lot of respect and there's a lot of appreciation for the history of what Texas and Texas and Oklahoma have meant to the conference. And so I think if Texas wins the conference and goes to the college football playoff, and that makes money for the Big 12.
No doubt about it.
I don't think there's nobody in this conference that is hoping that they do anything but go all the way. Paxton says Oklahoma has a cupcake schedule. I think Oklahoma State has a cupcake schedule. There is no question about that. I think when you look at the fact that Oklahoma is in a very interesting position, they do play SMU this year. So, wow. I mean, the world beater of SMU, who owns Dallas.
Apparently is going to be in the Pac-12.
Tulsa at Tulsa, at Cincinnati, Iowa State, at Texas, UCF, at Kansas, at Okie State, West Virginia, at BYU, TCU. I don't know that I would call that an easy schedule. I think, is Texas an easy schedule? Somebody said, I don't think so. At Alabama, Wyoming, at Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma, at Houston, BYU, K-State, at TCU, at Iowa State, and Texas Tech. How on earth is that an easy schedule?
It's not.
I don't understand. Now, you want to talk about Oklahoma State? Sure, we can talk about Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
No, you don't see the horns on their schedule. Central Arkansas, at Arizona State, South Alabama, at Iowa State. Should be 4-0.
Yeah.
Should be 4-0. K-State, Kansas, at West Virginia. Should be at least, I would think you should be 6-1.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Cincinnati, Oklahoma, at UCF, at Houston, BYU. That's potentially, and again, this is why we talk about quarterbacks, and this is why we talk about defenses and 3-3-5s. That's a 9-win schedule, man. Can they pull that off? Are they talented enough? Can they get continuity? I don't know. But I don't, the word easy schedule is not one I'd be throwing around, because I don't think that's, I don't think that's true. Hello. Paxton, you don't think that Oklahoma's schedule is easy? Not at all. I do not think their schedule is easy at all. I don't. Royal Coug, if Jake's name was Jake, you would have lots of guests. Are you ugly and not a female?
Apparently.
Is that why you're...
Apparently, that's what it is.
That must be it. That must be it. I mean...
No, I think a lot of these teams, honestly, what I think is a lot of these teams are just like, they just have like a set plan. They're just going to come in, they're going to do like 5 or 6 spots, and that's it. That's kind of what I've noticed. Most of them so far have come in and they just have their first spots done, and then they just kind of wander around. So
yeah,
it's kind of a, in all honesty, yeah, sure, I'm too nice or whatever you want to say, but it's not, they all clearly have a plan.
Yeah, I think I would be far more. I just think you got to pull a guy by the hand and be like, hey, why don't you come and sit down over here? Here's some fresh water.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I would, anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's where I would be going. But we are live at Big 12 Football Media Days in Dallas. Don't forget about our good friends at TryDayTrading.com, TryDayTrading.com/Monty. We tell you guys about this all the time. You have so many challenges in your life, and when you want to make the money that you believe you've earned, you got to work for yourself. If you're living on a paycheck, you are supporting somebody else's dream, and it's time for you to support your own dream. And I would do that right now if I were you at TryDayTrading.com, TryDayTrading.com/Monty. $10 gets you a 30-day trial membership. Now that $10 is a trial membership, so $10 for a 30-day trial membership. That's a charitable donation. That is a tax write-off for you. And in that 30 days, you get the entire program. You get absolutely everything that everybody has to offer at TryDayTrading.com. So you get all their coaching, all their process, all their algorithm, everything you need, all of the information that you're looking for. How do I do this? Where do I do this? How does this work? How does that work? You do that at TryDayTrading.com in their $10 30-day membership. They don't hold anything back because they know when they show you what's good, you're gonna continue past your 30-day trial membership. It's $10 worth of a charitable donation to see your future. And remember, at TryDayTrading.com, they have traders that make $1,000 a day trading full-time at a minimum. Their part-time traders make $300 a day at TryDayTrading.com/Monty. How'd we do, Jake?
They're going to Sirius XM first, and they have another stop. So
okay,
they'll be back around.
That's cool. That's cool. Brett Yormark's floating around. We're supposed to get him, apparently. So there's Coach Gundy right there, man. There he is. He's standing there, Jake.
Yeah.
You want that mullet. Oh, there is a crowd forming. It's pretty amazing watching the media here, watching the way the media works. It is pretty amazing how much media is here. It is remarkable how aggressive and how many in the volume of media that's here, man. And it's pretty remarkable that when you see, the level of media, whether it is like we're talking about Sirius XM, all the ESPNs, all the Fox are here, and you see the written media. So ESPN's probably got 20 people here, and they're all trying to get these one-offs as well. Like, it is a tough and challenging deal to pull off at these events. And I think that's why being at Jarrah World is such a big deal. But we are supposed to have Oklahoma State come in here. Dave Aranda from Baylor, Dana Holgorsen from Houston is set up to join us here. The eye patch, bold prediction: Oregon embarrasses Texas Tech by 3 touchdowns or more. Could absolutely happen. I mean, Oregon should be very good. There's no doubt about that. Old Texas Tech. Whoa. Comment on poor Jake has the job no one wants. He does. There's no doubt he does. That is very true. Old Texas Tech Man says guns up. Conundrum, man, you guys are great with comments. Conundrum says go Jake Land Gundy. He's trying, but apparently Coach Gundy's going on ESPN right now, which is fine. But it's one of these things where it is a very difficult job, dude. It's one of those things where you're competing against all these people, and I'm trying to text as well. But it's a huge room, man. It is absolutely a huge room, and so we'll get them. I appreciate your guys' patience, and it's just a matter of time because it all fits in. You got a bunch of dudes just wandering around, but you just have to kind of find your place, right? Let's see. Who else is in? Monty owes a ribeye says, who would pick ESPN over the Monty Show? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's crazy. I think I don't know what these people are thinking. It's an insult. So Jake is about to come over and give us a mullet update. I'm sure he's going to be unhappy about that. Ooh, you even brought me a cup of water. Thanks, Jake. How we doing with the mullet?
Since I haven't brought you anything else today, I thought I'd bring you some water. Mullet's on ESPN, so not doing the mullet right now.
So the mullet is on ESPN. Okay. Yeah. Joseph Melendez gives us $20. Tell Jake to go to Plan B. Bring out the calzones from Papa Murphy's Pizza.
Yeah, it's difficult to get when there's Sirius XM here, when ESPN's here. Obviously, it's a challenge. I think that maybe tomorrow we change our strategy, walk around the camera before the show,
and get far more aggressive. That's really what the problem is. Nobody cares, right? So you've got it's a tough job. This is how I started. Most people don't know this. This is how I started my career, like running around Super Bowls trying to get guests to do radio spots. And it's a difficult job, no doubt about it. Tom Dean, hey, can we get a Lawrence on the wall? Well, maybe some other time. Paxton, Iowa State tomorrow. Thanks. They are here tomorrow. That's right. Cowboy Country, you should replace Jake with Taylor Mathis. She could draw a few male coaches over to you. Don't know who that is. Calzones and Bucked Up would bring them all in outside the echo chamber, says.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Are you missing your Bucked Up today?
Yes, I have a pounding headache. I need caffeine.
You have a pounding headache?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a bummer. I'm sorry to hear that.
We'll work through it.
The talking points today, if you're just tuning into the show, the talking points today are pretty clear. I mean, Brett Yormark went out of his way today to talk about the fact that, when he said open for business, he did not mean he was going to be poaching teams from the Pac-12 or, stealing teams from other conferences. That's not at all what he meant. And I know there's a lot of skepticism about that, but I actually believed him. I think what he said was absolutely spot on, that he meant they were open for business in expansion, but also in every other corner of their business as well. And I think when you look at the way that he handled the press conference today, and he answered all the questions very directly, I thought he handled it well. And I think that he has absolutely crushed the revenue generation in this conference over the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what he does best. And he loves to say, hey, I'm not from the college football world. I'm just from the run a great business world. And that's what we always say, like, the Big 12 might play football, but they're a sales business, and that's what Brett does better than anybody else around, in my opinion. Yeah,
and I think when you look at what he talked about with the halftime show, they're doing a big, Super Bowl style halftime show at the Big 12 conference championship game for football, which is, by the way, going to be here for the next foreseeable future. I think for the next 7 years, it will be here at AT&T Stadium. They're also going to do a halftime show. Brett Yormark is a guy that understands entertainment, and he understands the value of entertainment. And I think that's exactly what you're getting when he's talking about, hey, let's do a halftime show. Let's bring in an artist. And, when he makes that announcement coming up in August, you're going to see it. He's going to have it be a big act. As they had DJs and entertainment at the Big 12 basketball tournament in Kansas City, which again today, he espoused his enjoyment. He said he hadn't had much exposure to Kansas City before the basketball tournament, but he absolutely espoused his love for Kansas City. And basically, I think one of the major talking points here today has to be the fact that the Big 12 owns The Big 12 owns Dallas. The Big 12, in my opinion, owns the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge detail out of today, that not only did you add Houston in the conference, give you every corner of the state of Texas, your championship game's going to be here, your combine's going to be here, or your pro day rather is going to be here. Like, they have a relationship with the NFL. They have a relationship with the Dallas Cowboys. They have a relationship with the state of Texas. Like, it is a win-win situation for the Big 12 and the state of Texas. And I think it's absolutely, and I don't know what you think, but I think it's absolutely an ingredient in the future success of this conference.
Yeah, and I think, in any college football conference, you have to, you're the biggest state in your footprint, you have to dominate, which is why the Pac-12 is in such a, bad situation, because they don't really dominate the state of California now. I mean, they may have 3 schools up north or whatever it is, but you don't have Southern California. And I think that's kind of the mecca of California. And I think that, you look around, the Big 12's got Texas, obviously the SEC, is sharing Florida, I guess, but I would say Florida is a bigger brand than UCF, and obviously bigger than Florida State. So I think that overall, yeah, I think you have to dominate the biggest state in your footprint. And I think the Big 12, does that for sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think it's very interesting. Dave Aranda's up on stage. Coach Leipold from Kansas was just up there meeting with the media and taking questions. I think it'll be really interesting to see how cordial the media continues to be here, because all these guys are going to come through here. And it's going to be interesting to see how much of this celebration, because I do feel like that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like today is a lot more about celebrating the growth and the success over the last 12 months of this conference, and maybe justifiably so. But I wonder how long this honeymoon goes on. And I can only say it, and I can only think that a lot of this continues to heap the damage on top of the Pac-12. And the longer the Pac-12 goes without announcing a TV deal, I think the worse it gets, because the Big 12 on a daily basis, they're going to Rucker Park next week, I think it is, to do these basketball camps. The visuals that are going to come out of Rucker Park are going to be spectacular, which is only going to cement the Big 12 into the Northeast and into I don't know that the Big 12 ever gets cemented or ingratiated into the New York basketball scene. I think that's tough to do. But the fact that you are doing community outreach in New York City is huge for the recruiting of Big 12 basketball. And you just keep creating initiatives like this and revenue streams like this. I don't know how that's anything but spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's your job as a commissioner and as a conference. It's, you need to create revenue and push the ball forward. I mean, that's what you do as a commissioner. And I think that's why Brett Yormark, has the Big 12 in such a positive position, because he knows how to do that. He has great relationships with his presidents and his ADs. And I think that's, that allows those two groups and that relationship allow the conference to move forward and make money in a lot of it and pick up the partnerships. Like that's the thing. Like that's what allows you to continue to grow.
Well, and I think one of the other things that's so imperative and important is that this feels very different with Texas and Oklahoma leaving the conference. This feels very different than USC and UCLA leaving the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a death knell for the Pac-12. And I mean, you're never going to be okay with Texas and Oklahoma leaving the conference, but it doesn't feel like the blow that SC and UCLA to the Big 12 is, or to the Pac-12 is. Mm-hmm. I feel like you are backfilling revenue. I feel like you are backfilling eyeballs. I feel like this is not nearly the fatality of USC, particularly USC and UCLA leaving the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that's all because the conference in the Big 12 has padded itself. It's created this sort of, layer where it's okay. We've moved on from Texas and Oklahoma leaving the conference, and the Pac-12 is yet to move on from UCLA and USC leaving the conference. And the other problem is that, at Texas and Oklahoma, you don't have a new coach coming in and setting the world on fire the way you do with Lincoln Riley and USC. And I think that's just more, that just adds that little bit extra flame to that conversation.
Yeah. But I also think you have a situation where you have the state of Texas is paramount. I just don't, not to be the master of the obvious after what Commissioner Yormark said today. I feel like you're in a position here in the Big 12 where when you can have Baylor, when you can have Texas Tech, you can have Houston, you can have TCU, like you have all of these opportunities and you have all of these things where you're almost insulating yourself from these losses. And the University of Texas is never going to be a small loss. But you have such a massive death grip on this state that I feel like you can absorb that loss. I feel like, and this is one of the reasons I say that Oklahoma State is just so vitally important to this conference, because you are losing Oklahoma and you're losing the history and you're losing the brand and you're losing the recruiting and the power that is Oklahoma football. And really it's Oklahoma basketball and Oklahoma softball and like the depth that Oklahoma is. But that doesn't mean that can't be offset. And the importance of the state of Texas in football. The Big 12 owns the state of Texas. The Big 12 has, and I say that fully knowing that Texas A&M is here, fully knowing the University of Texas is here. The awesomeness that is SMU. How will you ever survive? My point is, you have, I think, the ability to absorb the losses of these two, and you've replaced them. And I don't know how the Pac-12 is going to replace SC and UCLA, because even if you add San Diego State, Jake, I don't think that's a replacement.
No, it's not a replacement at all. And I think that a lot of people want it to be. I think we can try and, use the old tongue-in-cheek adage of butter on toast. It's not enough butter for the toast. We all know that. It's not surprising. It's not like some hot take to say that. And I think, it's just a matter of, again, the Pac-12 is out of options for who to add. So San Diego State being in San Diego is just sort of this fallback option, not necessarily a great, grade A option, if that makes sense.
Yep, I would agree with that. Let's see. The Nye guy says, Jake looking like the Delta 9 gummies are kicking in. Jake's all right. He's working on it. We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. Let's see. Monty Oza Ribeye says, I'm excited for Provo to move to Texas to be part of the Big 12, right? I mean, we saw the moving vans at, the school picking up the stadium. Let's see. Wet blanket facts. Texas, TCU, and Texas A&M combined have less DFW Metro commitments than Oklahoma State for 2024. Could be. I'd have to go and look at that. Cowboy country for Okie State. Alan Bowman fills the gap. Sanders leaving. Sure. But is Sanders even going to have a job this year? That's something to look at. Zane Flores is the future. See, but that's what I've been saying. And people are freaking out, losing their minds. Listen, if Bowman falters at all, I would go with Zane Flores. That's my opinion. If you're going to have a tragic season, build the future, man. If you're going to have some terrible kind of season, let's get on with getting on, because I can't say it enough. I think Oklahoma State now becomes a critical figure in this conference. I think it with the brand, with the history, with the tradition, you're never going to replace Oklahoma. That's never going to happen. But when Oklahoma State is good, the Big 12 is a better conference for it. And I can't even overstate that. Hi, Jay.
Finally, we have good news.
What's that?
Dana Holgorsen is joining us shortly.
Okay, good.
In about 5 minutes.
Good.
He said once he gets off of there.
I like Dana a lot. Dana's a good dude. And I think, you know what, man? I think one of the interesting parts about Houston is I don't think Houston gets the respect that a lot of people think they deserve. That's just me. I could be wrong, but Corey Black from Oklahoma State's going to sit down with us. Wow. Wait, I don't know where my sunglasses are, but dude, the bling factor. Let's just give him that mic right there. The bling factor is pretty remarkable. As Jake will adjust the camera. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Nice to meet you. My name's Monty. Welcome to our show. It's interesting. This is a transition year for you guys.
Yeah.
Are you tired of talking about it?
A little bit, but but I really want people to understand. So it's cool.
Yeah, I think when I look at you as a player, obviously, you're one of the more experienced guys on this defense.
Yes,
I mean, there's no question about that. But you guys are changing coordinators again.
Yeah.
You have quite a bit of talent to replace. How do you build continuity or how do you build chemistry? How do you guys become a unit when you have a lot of turnover?
The biggest thing that we really just decided to do was just learn the playbook together, learn the new defense together as a team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that builds a lot of trust within everybody, knowing that everybody knows what to do and what their job is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the interesting things, what is different for you guys in a 3-3-5 now? What is different? Like how, again, with your experience, I don't know that there's much you haven't seen.
Yeah. So for corners, I mean, it's kind of still the same for us. We still got cover and everything like that.
Turn your hips and run fast.
Exactly. Yeah. We're a bit more in the run game though, so that'll be fun. But
Yeah.
Other than that, it's still like you said, turn your hips and run.
Yeah. Are you a guy that likes playing in the box? You like to get physical?
Oh yeah. I'll like to. I'll have fun showing it this season. So
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing that as we visit with Corey Black from Oklahoma State. It's also an interesting year in the state of Oklahoma for football because obviously, and I think Commissioner Yormark talked about the respect that everybody has for Oklahoma, but that's a big game for you guys. I mean, that's a rivalry. When you think about not playing that game as a conference game.
Yeah.
What is that game? What does Oklahoma mean to you, and what does not having them in the conference mean to you?
For a lot of people, what I realize is that it's like. It got a lot to do with like if you're from the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'm from Texas, so I really don't, it's really never been a big deal for me. But I'm still gonna treat it just like a regular game, and just come out prepared. And of course we'll want to win it just because it's our last time playing OU.
Yep.
So it's gonna be fun for sure.
How's Coach Cundy been for you? I mean, that's a lot of people talk about him. Obviously, he's a strong personality. What has it been like over your career? What has it been like playing for him?
It's been fun, being able to learn from him. Obviously he been in college football for a long time, so he knows a lot. So everything that he says, you really want to listen to it and do what he says, just because you know that he knows what he's talking about.
Did you see the video of him doing the "I'm 40, I'm a man"?
No,
you never saw that. When at that media press conference.
Oh yeah.
I've seen
it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I would imagine a guy when a coach fights for his players like that.
Yeah.
I would imagine you got to love that.
Yeah, you got to love it. It just really just shows you how much he really cares for everybody.
Yeah.
The whole team.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the biggest things.
So talk to me about your recruitment. How'd you get out of Texas? We've been sitting here, honestly, right before you walked up, we were talking about the fact that the Big 12 has a really big footprint in Texas, as you are well aware, being a Texan.
Yeah.
How did you wind up getting to Stillwater, and what was your recruitment like?
My recruitment was a process. It was a long process, and of course it was overwhelming, stressful. But once I came to Stillwater, it just felt like home, and really Coach Duffy being able to just really talk to me and help me understand the game of college football and stuff like that and how it goes. It just felt like the place for me.
Yeah.
So
why was it stressful?
Just because you got coaches every day wanting to talk to you and trying to persuade you to come to their school and stuff like that. It's just like almost every hour of the day, even while you're at school, you get people, coaches coming through, talking to you and stuff like that. So it's definitely just that part.
What advice would your current self give your high school self, your recruited self? Like, if you could go back and do it again, would you change the way you handled that?
Yeah, I'll probably take more visits. I ain't take a lot of visits just because I was always busy, but I'll probably take the time out to take more visits, be able to go to a lot of different schools. I think I only took maybe 2 or 3 visits.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I took 1 official visit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Who advised? Like, did you? And the thing, I reading about your recruitment, I mean, you could have gone on a lot of visits.
Yeah.
I mean, you were a pretty hot guy. So, like, was somebody advising you? Was it a family thing for you? Like, how do you handle that? Because just the mail alone, I would imagine just the mail.
Oh yeah, the mail was crazy.
Yeah, right.
Really, my mom. I got an older brother, but he didn't go Division I. So me, I was the first kid to really go through the whole process and stuff. So, of course, my mom was like, I don't want you going far from home and stuff like that.
Which is why I want to know how you got out of Texas.
So, like, Baylor had changed some of their coaching staffs and stuff like that. And I always have a relationship with Coach Duffy at OSU. Like we always was always talking. And so really, you know, it was out of a few schools, but you know, once I visited Oklahoma State, and plus it's not that far. It's 5 hours.
It's not that far.
It ain't crazy, like across the country. So
yeah.
And then Coach Duffy, you know, like I said, was a great guy and great coach.
So are you a shoe guy?
Yeah, I like shoes.
Yeah. What's are you because you're wearing some Nikes?
Yeah, these are Dunks, off-white Dunks.
That is an off-white Dunk.
Yeah.
I was trying not to get over my skis. See, I'm a Jordan guy.
You are?
We collect. It's an infection in my house.
What's your favorite Jordan?
Well, I'll tell you what, this 13 is one of them.
13?
Yeah, but probably threes. I'm a Jordan 3 guy.
I like threes too. I remember my first pair of threes, the fire red ones.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big threes guy. Fours. I like fours too.
See, I skip the 4 and go to the 5.
You do?
Because the 5, you can walk around and you can run a marathon in a 5.
The fours do kind of get on your feet a little bit. But the 5s, though, it's always been the 5s always just been a tongue. I had a couple of pair of 5s, but I just never really liked the
big tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But 9s. I grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
So I'm old. I'm a man. I'm 50. And so I grew up with Mike. So yeah, he wore the first pair of 9s I ever got, the black and red 9s. Forget it, dude. It was that was it. And my mom would never buy them for me. So now I have like 200 pairs. I have a whole
that's
room.
what you get. Yeah, because like when I had my first pair of 3s, like I said, they just recently came out, and I just bought them again just because I have, just memories.
Have to. Corey, nice to meet you, man. Love the chain. Stay cool, dude. Be healthy.
Sir, appreciate it.
There you go. That is Corey Black from Oklahoma State. Thank you, Jake. Well done. Yeah, please. Please. No, it's all good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, have a seat. Preston Wilson's going to join us. No, you see, how could you do that? Look at it. He was sitting in the chair with the. Anyway, it's fine. That was a great interview. Really enjoyed that. See, and that's what you get at media days like this. And by the way, congratulations, man. Are you ready for this? Yeah, put your glasses back on, man. That was a big relief for Jake.
Good God, bro. Like, how hard is it, bro? How hard is it to be good to your word?
First of all, he's got ice around his neck and off-white Dunks on his feet that were cash. But I thought it was very interesting that he talked about, and I didn't want to get into Matt Rule with him, but he talked about Baylor's coaching change, which is how he wound up getting out of the state of Texas.
Yep.
Which is really interesting because he had just about any offer he wanted.
Yeah.
He could have gone anywhere he wanted, and he wound up. That's what happens with kids. You wind up in Stillwater, and you get close with a coach, and that's where it ends. But one of the funny stories is I'll never forget. I went to high school with a big-time Notre Dame recruit, and the mail that kid got, like he would get,
it's wild.
He would get, those
crates, the little box.
Yeah, those crates of mail,
the plasticky post box.
Just boxes of letters from coaches and schools back in the day. Again, I'm 50. But these guys now are getting text messages, they're getting calls, their coaches getting calls, their coaches getting emails. Like, it's off the chain when you have a bunch of grown men trying to get a high school kid to come and live in Stillwater.
Yes.
It's really something that when you have a guy like Corey who can really play, and it's interesting, you hear what he said about the 3-3-5, it means he's got to play the run a little more.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more space. You have to really be gap sound in a 3-3-5. And I think it's really interesting to see, exactly how all that plays out in Stillwater. Because I do think, and I didn't even know he was going to come and sit down. I do think Oklahoma State is a critical component in the Big 12 going forward, because you lose. I thought it was also interesting that he said that the Oklahoma State game, Bedlam, was only important to kids who are from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
it's like, I don't care. I'm from Texas.
Yeah, I mean, if you're from Texas, you probably don't care as much. I mean, obviously, it's a big game.
It is.
Obviously, as a football player in that game, especially a skill position guy, obviously that's a big game. I mean, you make one play as a cornerback, let's say, or wide receiver, running back, whatever it may be. I mean, you make one play as one of those guys, and now you've turned the tide in a massive, obviously one of the games of the year on your schedule. So, I mean, obviously, it doesn't mean as much to him because he's from Texas, but obviously still a game you circle on your calendar.
Yep. Boyd Lake says props to Houston for having players in suits it's a good look. It is. And dude, they were not in suits.
Yeah, they were
For
dripping.
those of you who don't know, they were not in suits. They're in like really nice suits. Wait till you see Cody Epps rolled up here in like a fine suit.
Yeah.
Like Cody Epps looked good. So it's going to be interesting to see how different guys dress. But I don't have a problem with the logo polo shirt. I don't have a problem.
Not at all, man.
The Baylor dudes are walking around here in suits to die for.
Yeah.
I mean, but everybody's different. You know, it is. You know, it is. It just is what it is.
Next guest will be Dana Holgorsen.
Really?
They took him down to that end because we got that guy. So,
yeah.
So
Dana's an interesting guy. I think Dana's a guy that when you look at Dana and you look at where he's been, you know, this is a dude that you know, was it Valdosta State, right? This is a dude that was a wide receiver coach at Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And the OC, and then, you know, he goes to Houston and Oklahoma State, and then West Virginia and Houston. And
yes.
Like, this guy's experience is really remarkable. He knows this conference well. Having been at West Virginia, obviously, for those 7 years, this is a guy that I think is uniquely qualified to build a program in this conference. And I think with what he's doing, it's going to be really interesting to see exactly, you know, like how does he build this program? Like, how do you go about, especially when you have the issues that he has at Houston, which is you were 20-7 in the last 2 years.
Seriously.
Like how steep can the hill be? You know, Lucas Coley versus Donovan Smith is absolutely one, but look what he's doing. You know, with David Agwebu from Oklahoma, that's a huge pull.
Yeah.
That's nothing small, right?
Yep.
I mean, Patrick Paul is a stud of an offensive lineman. You have the ability to pull talent in. You have the ability to build a program. It's going to be really interesting to see, you know, like how long does it take? And how different was Dana Holgorsen at Valdosta State or Wingate as a QB receiver coach to now, again, the boss for the last 4 years at Houston?
Yeah.
I think it's a fascinating conversation.
I mean, it's clearly a different level of program, obviously. And I think that, that Dana, you know, obviously wants to continue the trend. I think, you know, like we were talking about earlier today, we did a show earlier today. And during that show, we were kind of talking about how quarterback battles can kind of light a fire under your camp. And I think that, you know, that's something that you want to take advantage of. I mean, it's not to say that he probably doesn't have a real good idea about who he'd like to win that job, right? I mean, I think every head coach probably does. But at the same time, you also want to use that competitive fire to really drive home, hey, let's have a great camp. Like, let's execute on the little things. Let's really make sure that we're in a great place with it. So that's kind of where I think, you know, Dana has to focus and try to make progress.
But I also think, you know, one of the conversations we've had here at Big 12 Football Media Days presented by our good friends at BladeHQ.com, one of the things that I think is so interesting is, isn't Houston what SMU says they are? And the what I say about that, and what I mean by that is, SMU is one of those programs where they talk about, hey, we have all this money and we have all of this and all of that, and we used to be and what we could have been, but Houston's doing that already. Houston's 20-7 in the last 2 years, right? So if Houston's 20-7 in the last 2 years, the climb to being relevant in the Big 12, is it really that much of a climb? That's the question that I would ask. And my answer would be no, not for Houston. For SMU to go to the Pac-12, I think would be an incredible build. Sure, you have all that money, but what does all that money mean when you're not winning your conference now? Right? And I know I've said that 100 times, but I look at what Dana's built at Houston, and I look at the contrast to what SMU is now, and I just don't see that same quality program. I don't see that SMU is prepared to make a jump. that they can go and get a David Agwebu, that they can go in and build, recruit, develop a Patrick Paul to be 20-7. Like, I just don't see that as an option. How we looking on Sunny Dice?
Not great. They have a couple of spots set up already, a couple of like Sirius XM and
Of course,
bigger, huge networks.
The guys who are paying them to put them on.
Yeah. He was like, if we're still here between 4 and 5, that we may have a chance to get them. So.
Yeah, well, we will be.
Yeah.
I just think it's really interesting. Anyway, so my point is, I think Houston is uniquely positioned to make this jump, and I think really it's because Dana Holgorsen is the guy at the helm, and I think a lot of people will tell you that Houston's irrelevant or Houston, there's no way to spin the fact that SMU has the potential. Houston is living a reality, right? And everybody talks about SMU's money. What good is that money if it's not helping you win games and conferences?
Right.
And everybody, the radio magician up north in the Northwest talking about how it's the largest collective. Oil money. They'll pay off the Comcast debt. That's all well and good. Why aren't you using that money now to win games? Why aren't you using that money now? Well, all this NIL collective, cool. Why aren't you using that NIL collective to recruit now? And by the way, SMU doesn't deliver Dallas.
It's true.
SMU doesn't deliver Texas. It's not as simple as put me in the Pac-12 and all of a sudden everybody's going to go to SMU. Somehow I don't see that happening. Not when right now the hot, sexy chick in the room is the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean,
no doubt. I mean, just going to Pac-12 doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're going to be some highly,
Who's Brett Yormark standing there doing nothing?
Okay, I'll go ask him.
Go ask him. 5 minutes. Say, hey, man, why don't you come over, man? Hang out. Brett, Dana Holgorsen's going to be here, man. This is what's fun about being at events like this. This is what's fun about it. It is a blast to just sit here and talk to guys and to be able to talk to guys like BY and to be able to bring in, guys like Dana Holgorsen it's awesome because you're having real football conversations and you're having real, meaningful conversations about the formation and the future of this league. And I think guys like Dana Holgorsen, Kalani Sitake, those guys are hugely important. You just can't even, I look at Gus Malzahn and I say to myself, that's a guy with real world big conference experience that really has to make a difference for this league. Raider Mark says, yeah, I like Dana. I don't get the hate for Dana from some Houston fans. I don't get it. I really don't. Al Bundy. Tell Peg I said hello. SMU 2023 football commits, 42nd overall rank, 15th transfer rank. That's great, but does it translate to winning games? This is our biggest problem with the transfer portal and the star system and the recruits. There's not a football team in this country that's not talented. They all have talent, but can they grow? It's when Nick Saban talks about putting the right guys on the bus in the right seats. Like, that's what we're talking about. Saw you talking to Brett Yormark over there.
Unfortunately, I did not talk directly to Brett. That's what I was trying to do. I talked to his guy, and we may have a chance tomorrow morning. He said if you're here right around 8:15, you may have a chance.
We'll be here at 8:15.
We will try.
You know what I'm saying? Giggity says, get it done, Jakey, 2 holes. Bryce Martin says, I agree with y'all, but to be devil's advocate, what would the narratives be if the Big 12 added SMU? They secured Dallas and got a big money-making school. Well, I don't know. Is that what the narrative would be? Somehow I don't think that's what the narrative would be because the interesting part about this conversation, in my opinion, the interesting part about this conversation is that you have a former legendary program at SMU. Death penalty. Never recovered. But let's truth tell. The Big 12 already has Dallas. Already have Dallas-Fort Worth. Have the Metroplex. It's over. Right? You have Texas Tech. And everybody always argues with me on this, but I'm telling you, Texas Tech helps you in Dallas. TCU clearly helps you in Dallas. You can't help but think that Houston helps you in Dallas, right? Like, I mean, you can't tell me that SMU, and I'm not hating on SMU. The simple truth is, what's the value proposition for SMU in the Big 12? It's redundancy. So it doesn't bring you a new TV market. It doesn't bring you new reach, so it doesn't bring you new revenue. Well, it brings you a huge collective. Okay, cool. But how have they leveraged that?
Yeah, I think the only value add that SMU has as the Pac-12 is it lets the Pac-12 say they expanded, which in media clippings is a positive thing, but in reality and on P&L sheets, it's not.
Yeah, that's me. I don't know. I could be wrong. Everybody always tells me I'm stupid when we talk about SMU.
Right.
Literally, you will see in the comment section later tonight, you're stupid, because I don't see it. I don't see it. Right. And yeah. Anyway, DSCW says, tell Jake to remind people he asked for an interview that you guys are the biggest sports talk show in Utah. Well, that's
pretty much what I'm saying, dude.
That and a can of water will get you thirsty. Which is fine.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Truck Stop Gumby says, be there at 8. Oh, we will be. Montioza Ribeye, can you turn the cameras so we can watch Jake chase people down? No. Wow. Impotent person, BY. Well, there you go. I don't know. I have no idea what his impotency is. We should probably move on.
Yeah.
Renee Roca, there is a reason SMU wasn't added over UH. UH brings a new market. SMU does not. I agree. Absolutely. Starry says, oh my God, Big 12 already owns Dallas. SMU offers nothing to the 12. That's what I'm saying.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
I understand the comment about what would the narrative be, but I think the narrative would be, why'd you do that? You already own Dallas. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
What is it? Conundrum. Someday BY's agent will be calling to book a spot on the Jake show. Probably. I mean, it absolutely could
I won't
happen.
lie to you guys. It's not an easy task. I mean, when people, we're a big show in Utah. There's no question about it, but this isn't a Utah event. This is a national event where you have ESPN, Fox, Sirius XM.
Yeah, our show on a national level is less than a year old.
Yeah, I mean, we do, 500,000 unique views a month in the state of Utah and 2.7 million nationally, but that's hardly 400 million a month.
Yeah.
I love our show, and I'll tell you guys till I'm blue in the face that we dominate the state of Utah, and there's no question about it. But ultimately, people are either being paid to go on or are going to the places that they're comfortable with, and that's okay. But all we can do is ask and then try. And
I will say, Steve Sarkisian is wearing a very tailored suit today. He is looking looking quite tailored. There's a lot of nice suits in this building. Sonny Dykes has on a pretty nice suit too.
Yeah,
it's got on a purple jacket. I mean, we'll never get him, but
thanks.
Come on, that wasn't funny at all.
No, it's not.
It was.
We need interviews.
Let's see, Gavin Benton. How did Dana get his start at Valdosta State? We're going to ask him that, and why Valdosta. He's just an interesting dude. He was a quarterbacks, receiver, and special teams coach.
Yep.
Under Hal Mumme at Mississippi College as a quarterback, receiver, and special teams coach at Wingate.
Yep.
Wingate. Yeah. I like Dana a lot. I think Houston and BYU are are arguably the two most ready teams to compete.
Yeah, well, and I think Houston's potent. They're that high scoring game team that just continues to work that way. There are teams that want to put up a bunch of points and maybe lack on defense a bit, and I feel like that's kind of what Houston offers. And then there are teams that try to be balanced, which is what I think Kalani's trying to do at BYU, trying to have the best of both worlds and trying to understand if Keaton Slovis can get the job done or if you're going to have to go to another, to a backup or another, person.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating.
Here comes Dana.
I do think that's fascinating. Dana Holgorsen from Houston is going to join us here live at Big 12 Football Media Days, presented by our good friends at BladeHQ.com. There he is. See, I promised you good suits and jackets, and Dana from Houston's going to sit down wearing a very nice jacket. And we will chat it up. Dana Holgorsen, nice to meet you. Appreciate you joining us on the show. So everybody wants to know why Valdosta. Early in your career, like you've had a really interesting career. We were just talking about that you're uniquely qualified to make this jump with Houston.
I was I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I was 22. I just graduated from Iowa Wesleyan College. I'd spent my whole life in Iowa. Didn't vacation very much, blue collar working family growing up. Hal Mummy, Mike Leach, left Iowa Wesleyan, went to Valdosta State. So I went down there to start coaching. So I was making $6,000 a year for 2 years.
Wow.
Got my master's degree. They kicked me out and said, go coach. And so I moved to Clinton, Mississippi and started coaching, and then I guess it was like 4 years later, Leach is the head coach at Tech and brought me with him. So just rode their coattails as long as I needed to. But Valdosta was cool. I mean, South Georgia football is pretty good.
Right.
Plus it was, an hour and a half to Jacksonville Beach, and I think it was an hour and 50 minutes to Panama City Beach. And so I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Do you love coaching? I mean, I know that seems like an obvious question, but I think, for somebody that's been through the grind like you have, and you've worked for $6,000 a year, which I think is only slightly more than you're making now. Do you still love the game? Do you still love the process?
Yeah, I do. I learned this from Leach, which Bob Stoops had this in him. Mike Leach, Hal Mummy, these guys had this in them, where you need to learn how to flip the switch off. Summertime, switch it off, because if it doesn't ever end, you're going to burn out, and I've seen certain coaches, burn out based on the fact that they don't switch it off, and so, I don't apologize for not doing anything for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I'd be doing nothing today if it wasn't for the media days here today. I'm going to turn it back off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the next 3 days. And then we go back to work on Sunday, but you got to be able to turn it off. I like to vacation, take trips and get away and spend time with friends, spend time with family, see a variety of things. I'm going to go to Napa for about 3 days here in another 10 days. So I'm going to take off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, tomorrow, back to work Sunday through Friday. And then I'm going to Napa Friday, Saturday, Sunday for another weekend just to get away, and I don't apologize for that. I mean, we work tirelessly and we work hard, and, when it's time to do that, you got to do it. But when you can turn it off, I think it's important to turn it off if you want to stay in this thing for the long haul.
Well, and you've mentioned some titans of your profession. I mean, when you talk about a name like Hal Mummy, that's not some small guy, and you talk about, our late friend Mike Leach, who was fantastic. Do those guys still impact you today? Do you harken back to conversations or moments?
Yeah, we've, yes. Dear friends of mine, I thought I'd be running the streets of Key West with Leach for the next 30 years. I've spent time with Mike down in Key West probably 12 different times.
Yeah.
Just was a great friend of mine, and we go back 32 years, so he was my guy, and the guy that we, hung out with, Hal's a little older, a little bit more eccentric and kind of been out of the game for a little while, but, I thought me and Leach would be running those streets in Key West for a long time,
Yeah.
I do admire Bob Stoops, going back to the burnout thing. I'm not saying I'm going to retire here in 3 years. I don't think I can get Houston where I think it deserves to be in that short period of time. But I do admire Bob for accomplishing everything that he accomplished. What else was he going to accomplish in college football?
He turned it off and didn't turn it back on.
He turned it off when he was 55 and is living his best life.
Yeah.
The XFL kind of gives him a little bit of, just whet the appetite a little bit with football, and then say, okay, enough's enough. I need to go to one of my vacation homes.
Nice.
So, I'd like to be able to do that at some point, but we got some unfinished business here before my career is over.
Yeah. Dana Holgorsen from Houston's our guest. Thanks to our friends at BladeHQ.com. So what does Houston deserve? Where do they need to be for you to feel good?
One of the top teams in Big 12. You know, I mean, Houston's wanted this for 30 years. And Houston finally has it. All right. Now there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, we're not going to be on an even playing field for 3 to 5 years, you know, when it comes to facilities, which are going to be built, when it comes to the full share of a conference distribution, you know, which is going to be 3 more years from now. So there's things that have to happen. We're going to continue to build, but people are excited about this. This is what we've always wanted. So we need to take steps each and every year, and I think we will.
How much of your job is making money? Like when you think about, you know, like it is Todd Graham at Arizona State told me once about, you know, raising money to rebuild a stadium, and it almost killed him. And he's like, it's all I ever do. Like, how much of this job is not football, but making money so you can play football?
More than I'd like it to be, but it's the job that I currently have and the situation I'm currently in. You know, improving like Houston football is obviously what I'm in charge of, but like athletic department needs to kick in too, right? And so we need to hire more people. We need to sell more tickets. We need to raise more money, and we need people to be able to do that, right? So the difference in a Power 5 football program is different than a Group of 5 football program. Well, I got news for you. A Power 5 athletic department looks different than a Group of 5 athletic department.
Yeah.
And so that needs to be boosted, you know,
Yeah.
and it's going to take time for us to get there as well. In the meantime, I can't sit back and do nothing. We got a building to build and a budget to supplement. And, you know, it's not just me that needs to do it, but at the end of the day, if I want it to happen, it's going to a lot of it's going to be up to me.
Donovan Smith versus Lucas Coley. It's all anybody wants to ask you about.
It really is. You better have both ready.
Yeah, truth.
You know, there's 2 programs. I haven't confirmed this, but I read it on Twitter, so it's got to be right. There is 2 programs in college football last year that started the same quarterback every game.
Crazy.
The University of Houston and UTSA. So Frank Harris and Clayton Tune. The rest of them started multiple quarterbacks throughout the course of the season. So the importance of having more than one is pretty big.
Yeah.
Right. So my job is to get both those guys ready. I think Donovan has the upper hand because he's played in 21 college football games and Lucas has played in 2.
Yep.
So I think that probably gives Donovan the upper hand, but you better get both of them ready.
How good is Patrick Paul?
If he can lower his pads, and this has nothing to do with mentality or aggression. He's got more personal fouls than I'm comfortable with. So he's aggressive and he can pass pro. I mean, he passed pro Tyree Wilson the entire day when we played Texas Tech. It was a top 5 pick. So pass protection check, aggression check, intelligence check, personality check. If he can lower his pads and get better in the run game, he's a first day guy. Yeah. I mean, he's got that kind of ability.
Last question I'll ask before I let you go is how impressive and how impressed are you with Brett Yormark in this conference?
You know, it's a perfect fit. You know, what Bob Bowlesby did with the Big 12 was awesome. You know, he came in the same time that West Virginia came in 2011 or 12, whatever that was. And what he did with the conference was awesome. We're in a different age now. Yeah. It's like my job is different now than it was 5 years ago when it comes to promoting things, promoting a conference, social media. That's his strength, you know. And so what you see with the Big 12 with branding, thinking outside the box, it's what this conference needed. And it's working right now, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
No, and I think that's why the Rucker Park thing, and I know that's basketball, not football, but you talk about athletic departments. I think the Mexico situation, the Rucker Park thing, like it's just growing reach because that equals revenue. Like it just feels like you guys are moving forward as a conference. And Houston, I think you guys are one of the most critical components of that because Houston's not small. And I think you have the experience being in this conference previously and winning at a high level. Like, I feel like you are the perfect guy to make this jump. Like, do you feel like your experience makes that easier, if easier as possible?
No. I think the preparation has. I think my experience has helped in the preparation over the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Now, once you line up and play these teams, the coach and the experience on that other sideline, it equals mine.
Yeah.
You know, so that gives us no advantage. But the lead in, the prep over the last 18 months it's been good. You know, Brett talking about Mexico and Mexico City, and it makes sense. You know, that's a very large city, to say the least, which is people, which is population, you know, which is support, which is fans, which is tickets, which is eyeballs. Makes a lot of sense. I'm probably going to go to Mexico City tomorrow and check it out.
Nice. Do it. Appreciate you, man. Nice
All right,
to
see
meet
you,
you.
bud.
Thanks so much. Dana Holgorsen from Houston. I told you guys, like, he understands it. He gets it. And the thing that I think is really important is that his experience that he talked about there, because this is not an easy thing. And I think a lot of people think that somehow this is just, you know, like I mean, we're just going to start winning football games. You're not just going to start winning football games, because you got to sell tickets. You got to improve the stadium. Like Todd Graham, I will never forget that conversation we had with Todd Graham, the Arizona coach way back at Arizona State. Like their media guy was so adamant that we asked him about fundraising. And Todd told us after we were done with that interview, I'm tired of talking about money. I'm tired of talking about raising money. I just want to coach football games. Because it's all these guys have to do now.
Yes.
And money is, I get it. Money is the root of all that kills. But, man, if you have it, it's great. If you don't, you're screwed, man.
Yeah. No, couldn't have said it better myself. It's the beginning and the end. Like whether you're talking about yourself or whether you're talking about a college football conference or a team, you know, I mean, money is the lifeblood of life. You have to have it to operate.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. I think Donovan Smith should win that job. I agree with Dana on that. I think it's really important that the experience pays dividends, because that experience, whether it's Dana as the coach and the program builder or Donovan as the quarterback, I think it's really important that experience, because that can guide you through situations. You know to take some breaths, you know to take it easy, like you're not freaking out. And I think that experience is just really important, man. And it's so difficult when you're talking about, you know, just trying to win at this level, man, from the AAC to the Big 12. Do you guys understand the monumental jump that is? Man, it is really difficult to make that jump. And I think when you look at Dana and where he's been, he talked about Leach, he talked about, you know, Hal Mummy, and I just think that experience, being able to call on that experience and being able to, you know, to really think about conversations you've had, situations, phone calls, moments. Man, that's what makes you a great coach. That's what makes you a great coach, I think, in my mind. Congrats on getting him. Immaculate says thank you. Appreciate that. Dibbs says, Jake, have a couple on me tonight at dinner. You earned them today. Yeah, Jake's doing a good job. I only joke with Jake. He's doing a good job. It's very difficult when you're trying to compete with a million other dudes. But that's just me. Monty gonna drag me for dragging Dana. I mean, that's up to you. Gregory King says, I wish Dana was still at West Virginia. He was not a great fit, but he won. He wins. That's the thing that is so critically important, is he wins.
Drake Dabney.
Okay. That's the thing that's so important, is just that he wins. And I think when we sit here and we talk about, you know, we talk about winning, it's really difficult to win when you jump conferences, because you wind up in places like, you know, Baylor and Waco, and you wind up running up against Drake Dabney at tight end. How's life treating you, man? Welcome to Dallas.
Great. I mean, it's an honor to be here. It's best stadium in the world. I guess I'm a little biased. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, but it's just great to be here around a lot of great guys.
Wow. Are you really? So you're a Cowboy fan. I mean, we're sitting in the end zone. That's kind of got to be cool.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely a surreal feeling. I mean, being able to play here 2 years ago was great. And just, yeah, always good when you can be in this building for sure.
How did you end up at Baylor, and what is your experience been like?
So I got to Baylor in 2020. I committed when Matt Rule was still head coach, and then kind of the transition with Coach Aranda my freshman year. So it was his first year, and I mean, it's been a lot of up and downs, but it's definitely been a blessing. I feel like I've grown as a person, as a man, on and off the field, and just the people that have come in. I think it's just all God. I feel like I'm surrounded by great people each and every day, and having just Coach Grimes in my life, and
good old Grimy, huh?
Coach Grimes, just with his offense and the scheme, and how he uses the tight end. I feel like it's definitely a blessing.
How have the Barringtons been? You know, obviously that's a huge loss for BYU. But, you know, Coach Grimes is a guy that has that relationship and was able to get, I mean, Clark is a really solid performer. Like, how has that been, you know, building through the portal? And I mean, they're going to help you offensive line. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, Clark and Campbell have both been great. I think they've been nothing but positive energy. I think they bring a lot of experience to the table and what we have as a young group and a young O-line. So excited to see what those guys can do. I'm glad to be able to go out and work with them every day, and I think they've just been great. We were able to play golf last weekend, so they're always, I mean, they get along with everyone, and just great to have around.
How's your golf game? Like, what are you? Are you a driver? Are you an iron guy? Like,
depends on the day, honestly. I mean, I shoot maybe low 90s on a good day. So
nice.
I've been playing for about a year now, so I mean, it's just a
Do you love it?
Hobby. Yeah, I mean, for a point in time, I was probably going like every weekend.
Love it.
Playing with guys on the team and stuff. So we all that's a way for us to kind of get together and go out and bond with each other. And it's a little fun competition. But yeah, definitely there's always ways to improve in your golf game. You may be on one day. It's always that one good shot that keeps you coming back. So yeah.
Yeah, we golf all the time. I'm a PXG guy, and I golf every weekend, and I'm still in the low 90s.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tough.
But isn't it funny though? Golf is one of those sports where it works on your mental toughness.
Oh yeah, definitely. It teaches you patience, and you can't get mad at anyone else except for yourself. So you
can get mad at the golf ball. Trust me.
Yeah, but you definitely just. There's always something to improve on, just like football or just life in general. So yeah.
Yep. Blake Shapin takes a lot of heat. That's a guy that a lot of people talk about. And I'm curious your thoughts on, you know, your offense, your thoughts on, you know, like, were you, you know, what was last year to you guys? Were you as good as you thought you could be? Like, take me through that, and then where are you now?
You know, I think last year was definitely a learning experience for a lot of us. I mean, coming off of a Big 12 championship the year before, I think we may have put like too many expectations, or the pressure may have got to us and just kind of caused just some little friction. But I think this year we've really tried to just get back to us and back to the basics and back to what being a Baylor Bear is, and just stick it to our standard. And I think we've had a lot of great leaders emerge and kind of just holding each other accountable, and we've made great strides throughout the spring and just this whole off season. So I think we got all the right pieces in place and all the talent to be able to do what we need to do and go out and win every single game.
Yep. Talking to Drake Dabney from Baylor on the Monty Show, presented by BladeHQ.com. You talk about spring ball, and I think spring ball is vastly underrated. I think that period of time, because you correct me if I'm wrong, but the teams I've been around, you form a lot of really important relationships. You really set yourself up for a successful or not successful summer. How important was spring ball for you guys?
I mean, spring ball was super important. I know we had new guys. We mentioned Clark and Campbell earlier, come in the portal. Jake Roberts, another tight end. So just being able to get out on the field and just kind of make each other better each and every day. I think we definitely took big strides in the spring as an offense and a defense. So just having that opportunity to go out there every day and compete is definitely huge. And I think it will definitely help us build momentum going into the season.
How are you physically? I know that obviously last year ended before you want it to end, but I mean, how are you feeling physically? How was your rehab for you?
Yeah, I've been doing great physically. I feel like I'm completely back to being better than ever. I know last year didn't end how I wanted to, but I mean, just mentally and physically, it was tough. But I think I had a great support system, great trainers, and just family and friends that just helped me to be able to make a comeback, and spring ball went well and just recovery went smooth. So yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, well, enjoy Baylor. I know you guys have a lot of expectations, man. Like that, And expectations aren't necessarily a bad thing, but I mean, this is one of those seasons where I feel like you really should, you should be a leader. You should have a breakout year. Like, your experience should really teach a lot of these guys down the line from you how to deal with those expectations.
Yeah.
I would think anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this being my 4th year here, I think I definitely can kind of show some young guys the ropes, and I've seen what it looks like and what it doesn't look like, and I think, and just like I mean, everyone's gonna have expectations. We have expectations for ourselves, but I think as long as we can kind of compress that, just take it week by week, and just have that 1-0 mentality that we're just gonna win each game, each week, and just kind of stick together. I think the sky's the limit, and this team can definitely do great things for sure.
By the way, I like your kicks. I'm a big shoe guy, so
thank you.
They absolutely. Yeah. What are you wearing?
I just got these, are just some Ferragamo.
Oh, just
shoes.
some Ferragamos, you know.
Just something light.
Just something you threw on today. Some Ferragamos, my guy. Nice to meet you. Stay healthy, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
There you go. Big year coming for Baylor. And you know what? I think what Drake said there about, teaching guys, I know, right from wrong. I've seen it, not seen it. Like, I think that is a really important thing on a team like Baylor, who I think is trying to achieve something more and clearly has expectations. I mean, you heard him talk about Grimes. You heard him talk about the Barringtons. Like, they really got into the transfer portal. They really got after it. I think it's critically important that this Baylor team, especially with their schedule, Baylor's got to get off to a really good start.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that Baylor, Baylor is a team that can really overachieve. I think they're that team that everyone's saying, oh, well, you guys were, mediocre. Maybe the year before that you weren't very good. But this year I feel like you can be a program that overachieves. Now, some of your guys are really going to have to step up, but I think it's possible. It's well within the opportunity.
On Baylor's schedule, home games with Utah and Texas Tech. Obviously the Houston game. Road games, UCF, Cincinnati, K-State, and TCU. I mean, that is a difficult schedule, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Baylor's not capable, but I don't know how anybody successfully navigates all those landmines, right? Like, that is really tough. And I think it's going to be interesting. Again, we've been talking all day long about the quarterbacks in this league. The Blake Shapin situation at Baylor is a big deal. I mean, Blake Shapin's a guy and that's just me, but Blake Shapin's a guy that I think is going to have to get himself to 300 yards a game. If this is going to be a dink and dunk offense, it puts so much more pressure on an offensive line at Baylor that I think is going to have to grow chemistry, and they're going to have to find a way to come together. That's why I asked Drake about spring ball, because I think when you have a lot of transfer portal, and spring is one of those times where you really spend time together and you're trying to figure out who's what, and hey, I like this guy. Hey, I'm friends with this guy. I'm going to room with this guy. I'm going to golf with this guy. Like, spring ball is really important, especially for an offensive line. And I think if you go up and down this conference, who's the team we talk about with the most talent and the best offensive line? The Texas Longhorns. Because they're returning all their guys. They have continuity. They have experience. You feel like that's something that's critically important for this Baylor team, especially when you have a quarterback in Shapin that honestly, he's got to find a way to carry this offense. He's got to be a guy, because I think they're really counting on him. And I know that it sounds crazy, but I think in this league, you got to have a 300-yard quarterback every week in and week out. And if you look at the teams we've talked about, maybe Okie State's one of the best examples of this. You don't know what you're going to have at quarterback. But I think Dana knows what he's going to be doing at Houston. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Baylor needs Blake Shapin to step up and perform. And I think if he does that, Baylor can win some games. I mean, that right out of the gate, let's just be honest, that Utah game is massive. It's massive for Utah, and it's massive for Baylor. So I think it's this, what's the right word? Confluence. It's where all this stuff comes together, where you've got to find a way to have chemistry, where you've got to find a way to replace the guys who were in the portal and do it effectively, right? Like it's one of those things where I think Blake Shapin's a guy, and I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but I think Blake Shapin's a guy who is better than we've seen. I think Blake Shapin is a guy who is a better quarterback than we have seen. I think that that's the best way I can put it, because if we can get the best version of Blake Shapin at 300 yards a game, dude, I think that the sky's the limit for Baylor. With that schedule, if he's at 300 yards a game, the offensive line played really well. Like that to me is huge. And let's not forget, this is not a kid. This is not a 19-year-old. This is a 22-year-old kid. And I think when you look at the fact that he redshirted his freshman year, like, that's huge, dude. It's huge. But he's got to be at a point where 2021, obviously that was a lost year for a lot of people. He played 5 games. You know, you're talking about completing 72% of his passes. I'd also like to see that 63% from last year be 67, 68, 69, right? That's hugely important. The 10 interceptions got to come down, or the touchdowns got to go up. Like, so there's all this stuff where I feel like he's better than we've seen. Do we get that this year? You better. He absolutely better. So it'll be interesting. The Shreveport kid for Baylor. We'll see what that happens. Aaron Wilson says Blake Shapin's a better man than you are. Yeah, we hope so. Let's see. Raider Mark says, I will be making my first trip to McLean Stadium for Baylor Tech. Ooh. Yeah, that's going to be a great game. That is going to be a great game. Bryce Martin, Shapin had one good game against Okie State in the championship game, but has been mid ever since. I mean, I don't disagree with that. But who is he? Who is he? That's the question. Who is he? And I wonder if you really look apples for apples, if you really look at Baylor, boy, Baylor's that team that if they get some quarterback play, they could be really good, right? I mean, you've had staff changes on the defensive side, but Grimes has been there now. The Barringtons come in. Like, I think Keytron Jackson, the transfer, is absolutely imperative, right? I think that's huge. And you're returning 12 starters and only 5 of them on defense. This offense should be better. Don't worry about the defense. That's not Blake Shapin's job. The offense should be better. There is no question about that. So it's going to be interesting. But, Bryce, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong at all. Their road schedule, though, is, I mean, you look at Baylor, they're home their first 4 weeks. They go on the road to UCF, and I'm telling you, as sure as I am sitting here, I do not want to go and play at UCF. I don't. I mean, that is a place where if you go to Orlando and you, dude, that's going to be a madhouse. That is absolutely going to be a madhouse. And I think that's a game that if you circle that game on the Baylor schedule, that's going to be a big one. That's that game that determines 8 versus 9 wins. That's that game where you're like, well, man, if we'd only, well, you didn't, so you won 8, 9, right? Maybe that bumps you up a level in bowl game. Like, I just think it's going to be really interesting. And I also think when you look at the Big 12, 10 games can win this conference. 10 games. If you win 10 games, because, again, do you really feel like 13-2? Do you really feel like 9-0 in conference is going to happen for TCU again? Dude, that's almost impossible, right? I can see K-State winning 6 conference games. I can see that, but somebody's going to 10 games. If you win 10 games, and I think Texas is that team again. I know, crucify me. But I think Texas is that team. Blake Shapin, by the way, may be joining us here in just a minute. So get ready for that. Aaron Wilson says, Baylor is my second favorite Big 12 team. UCF is ready. They are ready. I'm telling you, I think they're top 6 in the league. 5, 6, 7. I feel like they could absolutely be. Conundrum says, stay out of the mouse house. Seriously. Bounce House is ready for the Big 12. Yes, it is. UCF's tough, dude. That weather's different. It's a different kind of humidity in Orlando, man. I'm telling you. Bryce Martin says, especially this year with the first year in the 12, I agree. Riley O'Brien got out of timeout. Good job, Riley. He says, I think that's very, very difficult. What do you mean? Sean Mierzinski, UCF is the Oregon State of the Big 12. Teams go there to lose. You do. You go there to die, dude. You absolutely go there to die. And I think if you're UCF, you have to take advantage of that. And I'm looking forward to talking to UCF tomorrow and really getting into that. But if you look at Baylor's schedule, that UCF game on September 30th, I think the K-State TCU twist in late November, huge. I mean, what is Cincinnati on the road? I mean, obviously you'd rather play them at home, but Cincinnati's probably not deep enough to compete with Baylor right now. But can Baylor build a defense? I think that's a huge question. So, I mean, obviously Texas, UCF, Tech. I think Iowa State's probably going to be they're not going to be a 1-8 team in conference again. There's no chance that happens. But it'll be very interesting to see exactly, how all that plays out and what that looks like. But I think here at Big 12 Football Media Days, presented by BladeHQ.com, BladeHQ.com, the best knives made by the best knife makers. As Coach Leipold goes by, Blake Shapin joins us. So anybody talking about you lately? Anybody, it seems like you are a huge conversation point for Baylor fans.
Yeah, I don't really know much. I don't listen to too much, but yeah, I mean, just I'm here, so I don't know how to answer it.
Do you? You're an interesting cat though, because obviously with the redshirt year, you're 22. You're not the 19-year-old kid that's trying to find his way.
Right.
I think you're somebody that brings leadership. You bring maturity. What is in your opinion, from your perspective, what is your value to Baylor football?
I think, like you said, I have a little bit of experience under my belt. I've been in, now a good bit of college football games and played in them and started in them. So, I think I know what it's like to play in big time, places and things like that. And so, just be able to help the guys around me, be able to, try to tell them what it's like and different experiences that they might experience if they're a young guy. And so just to be able to be there as a teammate for these guys and to wear my experience off a little bit on those guys has definitely been a thing. So
last year clearly was not the year that you guys as a program wanted, but what do you take from that? What did you learn last year? What were the growth opportunities last year?
I'd say just unifying as a team. I think last year, our culture probably wasn't exactly where we wanted it. And so now just being able to step that part of our game up as a team has been a big emphasis in the offseason. So being able to hold guys to higher standards, being able to be the guy that steps up and say, hey, that we need to do this better. And I think that's something that not only have I grown in, but a lot of my other teammates have done the same thing. And I think everybody wants the same thing. They have the same goal, and we're all aligned, and that's how it should be. And I think we might have missed that a little bit last year. So it's been good. So
not insignificant though. Like that, when you talk about culture, and I know it's a word that everybody throws out, but when you talk about culture and relationships and chemistry, that stuff really matters. And you guys, especially on your offensive line, you bring in Clark and Campbell Barrington from BYU, who we know very well. You have a guy in Grimes that obviously he's somebody that knows how to develop guys. He is an offensive line guy. Like, do you feel like your guys up front, is there continuity? Is there chemistry up there?
Yeah, there is. Every day when I walk in for breakfast, those guys are sitting together. I mean, there's not a time that I'm walking around the facility that, there's not a group of 2 or 3 of them together. And so I see that the relationships they're building with each other, and I see how hard they work each and every day. And it's pretty amazing to watch because, Clark and Campbell, they've added a huge piece to the offensive line and experience. And for Clark to be able to come in and lead and like I said earlier, having experience and things like that has been huge, but not also just on the field, but off the field, being able to help these guys each and every day to achieve the goals that they want to achieve. On
the field as a quarterback, how does that impact you?
It gives me confidence knowing that those guys up front, they know what's going on and things like that. And Clark, like I said, brings that piece and I'm excited to see what they can do. It's been fun, growing with them, going to workouts every day with them. Just seeing how they move, it's pretty awesome, and I'm excited to see what we can do this year.
Do you think much about the defense? Because that's what you have a lot of change on defense. I don't think anybody denies that.
Right.
As a quarterback, how do you compartmentalize that? How do you turn that off and just worry about what you need to worry about?
at the end of the day, we're a team, so we're all worried about, each other. And at the end of the day, when we go on the field, we all have to worry about our jobs. But when we're going through workouts and things like that, we can help that. Offensive guys can help defensive guys and hold them to a higher standard and things like that. But when we get on the field, it's a different story. And like you said, so for us to be able to just focus on what we got to do individually on each side of the ball means everything. And yeah, we're new, but we're working hard each and every day.
And are you, as we visit with Blake Shapin from Baylor on the Monty Show, thanks to our friends at BladeHQ.com, how much ceiling do you have left? Because you're a guy who when I look at your tape, I see a guy who's there's a lot more yards there. Like I view you as a 300 yards a game every week. Like I think that's there. Do you think that's there? And does your offense give you the opportunity to grow into that guy?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Coach Grimes, he's very smart. He knows a lot about football. He knows how to put us in good situations to go into the game and be ready to execute. So I definitely feel like, yes, I have that in the tank, and I feel like we have the coaches to make that happen too. And so, my job is to go each and every week as a mindset to just be the best that I can be. And it's not about throwing for 300 yards a game for me. It's about winning football games, and that's what I'm here to do.
Look at you. That's a great answer.
Yes,
and before I let you go, TJ Franklin and Gabe Hall are massive human beings.
Yeah, they are.
Speaking about talking about your defense, I obviously those two guys are two guys that jump off the sheet. But when you look at them and you look at the tests that they give to your offensive line, I mean, those are two pretty good defensive ends right there.
Oh, no doubt. When you have those two guys on your football team, it's pretty special. It's pretty awesome to watch them too. They give our O-line, a run for the money every day, and they show up each and every day and test them each and every day. And so, it's only going to help us be better as a unit, as a team. And, our O-line guys look at it as a challenge too, facing those guys, and they do a good job of handling them in practice, but they also do a good job on the defensive side of the ball too. So be able to have two guys like that, just makes us better as a whole.
So are you more of a shoe guy or a sock guy? Because your sock game's pretty strong, dude.
No, I actually just walked in the other day and there was only a couple pairs on the rack. So I was like, you know what? I'll go with the baby blue and the pink pig. So that's what I did.
That's awesome. Blake, nice to meet you, man. I appreciate you coming by.
Yes,
there you go. Stay healthy. Blake Shapin, Baylor football quarterback. And again, another really good conversation. Like, if you do not understand the importance of an offensive line to a quarterback, I think what he talked about, walking in every day for breakfast and seeing 2 or 3 of his offensive linemen having breakfast together, walking around the facility, talking to each other, hanging out with each other, man, that chemistry with offensive lines, I think, is massively important. And I think that's why when he talks about them eating breakfast together, man, I think that is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the chemistry that you build in the non-football moments is what ultimately brings you together when you hit adversity. So I think, yeah, whether it's the O-line eating breakfast together, or whether it's the quarterback room coming together, like all that matters big time.
Yeah, and I think it's really, he's the guy. Honest to God, he's the guy that's going to make their offense go. And I think he gave you the exact right answer when I said, hey, 300 yards a game. And he said, it's not about throwing for 300 yards a game. It's about being making the right plays for the offense. And I think that's a really good answer. The guy, honest to God, if he's got to throw for 20 touchdowns and 300 yards a game, dude, I don't care what, because the problem is he's a guy who could throw for 200 yards a game too.
Yeah.
And if that happens, dude, they're not going to win.
Yeah.
And I think he has a club at Baylor that uniquely understands how to develop. Coach Grimes can develop offensive linemen. Coach Grimes understands the continuity piece on an offense. He understands how to connect the dots. This offense is going to have very few excuses this year, because I think Clark Barrington is a beast on the offensive line.
Yes.
Anybody that's watched a moment of him at BYU knows that. I think Clark is a beast. I think that they have enough at the skill positions. Is Blake Shapin a major contributor? That's the only question that you have here. And that's a really impressive conversation, because notice he didn't hesitate. Now, I don't believe for a second he doesn't listen to the media.
Everyone listens to the media, bro.
Everybody listens.
Yeah,
right?
I think you listen more when you're a quarterback, and there's expectations, and yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, it's just a question of how far can you take them. Ultimately, with a quarterback, it's how far can you take us.
Yep, and how far can you take your life when you bring home a Papa Murphy's pizza for the family? That's the best transition I could do right there. Papa Murphy's Pizza, the official pizza of the Monty Show.
At Papa Murphy's, we do more than just pizza. We do calzones.
Papa Murphy's does calzones?
Oh, I think you mean I do the calzones.
And how do you do it, Dad?
How do I do it? How do I do it?
Well, we do it with fresh ingredients and hand-shredded cheese tucked in a scratch-made dough.
That's how, honey.
At Papa Murphy's, we make great pizza.
Hey, don't forget the calzones.
Order now at papamurphys.com.
Papa Murphy's Pizza, the official pizza of the Monty Show. Make sure that you download the Papa Murphy's app. Use the promo code Monty25 to get 25% off your purchase of $25 or more at Papa Murphy's Pizza. I see you talking to the Sikkim 365 guys.
No, they were talking to me.
Are they trying to recruit you?
No, he was like, "Hey, man, we're doing we're putting together, we're interviewing all the media outlets here and seeing what everyone thinks, and we'd love your guys' input. You guys have a great channel, and
so you're going to be on. Well, look at you.
I don't know if I'll be on.
Becoming a rock
he
star.
Just wants to.
He
wants to know how many teams I think will be in the Big 12 next year.
How many teams will be in the Big 12 next year?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I think it's going to be 37.
Yeah.
That could be wrong.
Yeah.
That could be an exaggeration. Let's see. Jeff Woodward says Shapin does the calzones.
That's right.
Everybody does the calzones at Papa Murphy's. Is Clark there? He is not, unfortunately.
No.
Let's see. Sterling Tracy, Jake's eyeing everyone down, waiting to unleash on his prey. Man, I hope we get Kalani. I hope we get Kalani because he's such a good dude. I mean, and if we turn this thing around, let's zoom out. Let's turn this MFer around. Let's show you what's going on inside AT&T Stadium. And hello, there is Kalani F. Satake. You see, it's a huge house. Like it is absolutely. This place is stacked. There is a lot of people around. There are a lot of people asking questions today, and it is very interesting. It is awesome to be here. I have to tell you. Aaron Wilson gives us $2 to say, "For the love of God, collab with 365 Sports." I would love to. I don't have time, but Jake does. 2 holes. Go get Jalen Daniels.
Right. Right.
Oh, I love it. Mr. Guy says he throws for 2,000 yards or 4,000 yards this season. Well, listen, man, I think that if you can get him, because what did he I think it was 244 a game last year.
Right.
You know, you add 13 guys out of the portal, including Keytron Jackson, who I think is a really important contributor for them. Clark Barrington, Campbell Barrington, like you did everything you could do to help the offense. And I think that's critically important.
Yeah.
And if Blake Shapin does not perform, and if he's not a guy, as you see the ESPN set over there, if he's not the guy that you think can do the job, I don't know what he's doing there.
Yeah. No, 100%.
He's 22 years old. He's not a guy that is some rookie. He's a guy that you expect to perform, right? And I think he's somebody that you should expect to perform.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, again, veteran, has the experience, and he's going to need to lean on that. But I think this question here is spot on. Is he closer to 2,000 or 4,000? Because that's ultimately what's going to decide, their success or failure as a team.
I don't buy for a second that Grimy lets him be a 2,000-yard quarterback.
Can't see it. No way.
No, maybe I have too much faith in Grimes, but I think he's a guy that at BYU we saw him. I mean, he is somebody that I think makes a huge difference on his offense. It impacts his players in a positive way, and I just don't think that. Yeah, I just don't think that he's somebody that is going to let you fail. I really don't. I think when you look at the way that they've performed, I think. I have to believe that they're going to tune him up.
I mean, you would think. But who knows?
I would think so.
You would think.
By the way, Riley O'Brien says, who's the single most physically imposing player you've seen today? Patrick Paul, and it's not close. That is a massive human being.
Yeah.
Like, and among massive human beings, that's a massive human being.
Yeah.
Truck Stop Gumby, such a trip seeing Jake and Monty in the background of Sikkim 365. Well, hey, there you go, man. There you go. We're collabing. You asked, we did. Capazzo, that looks like a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. You know, you look at what's going on here at AT&T Stadium, and you look at the group that's hanging out. Like, it's a really lively group. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of conversations going on. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, to be in this building and to look at that thing. Look at that screen, man. Like, it's ridiculous that we're in this building. We have no business being in this building. We're just the two YouTube hacks, you know, like, I mean,
we don't know anything. We're good.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I think it's a great joint. It's fun. Forward thinking trucker, and you get to do it all again tomorrow. Yes, we do. We'll be right back here tomorrow, live on YouTube. Thanks to our friends at BladeHQ.com. How many players are actually there? There's like 3-4 players from every team. I mean, there are, and it depends. The team gets to choose who they want to bring. You know, like I can tell you, you know, if you look around, you know, Cody Epps was on the show earlier, but Tyler Batty's here, Ben Bywater's here from BYU. There's no doubt, like TJ Franklin, Mike Smith are here. We talked to Jack Freeman, Patrick Paul from Houston. Nelson Caesar was one of the most, I think, really physically ripped dudes we've seen today. You know, Jalen Daniels running around looks really good. Corey Black from Oklahoma State was on the show. He looked great. Preston Wilson is a big, intimidating dude.
Is.
That is a big bro. That is a big bro. But there's a bunch of guys that are here. I mean, it is, you know, seeing Bug Clark from TCU he's a pretty ripped up dude. TCU has a bunch of guys here.
Yeah.
They have an entire group here. But, you know, like the odd thing is, like, I'm really looking forward tomorrow to talking to Taylor Shuck, like from Tech. I really hope that we get to talk to Jaron Bradley from Texas Tech. Like, Texas Tech's bringing a small but mighty contingent.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, Monty owes a ribeye. I like the show today. Feels like I'm in Arizona time zone, getting an extra hour of showgrams. There you go.
That's right.
Usually we'd just be starting the show. Renee Roca, when I was public school art teacher, I used to take kids to the stadium. They have a public art tour. Then we played football on the field. Wow, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. Boyd Lake, Batty, and Bywater are positioned for great opportunities this year for BYU. They really are. BYU, that defense is going to have to be different. Jay Hill was not brought in to trifle with the boys, right? I mean, there is no doubt in my mind that Jay Hill is going to make a huge impact on that defense, and he better, because BYU cannot continue to play the game where they just sort of kind of succeed.
Right.
You know, they need to be, hello.
Hello.
Hi. Good to see you, boys. This shirt makes me look fat. No, you are fat. It's probably true. Anyway, my point was, I don't think BYU's in this position where you can trifle around and, you know, hope and pray that you're successful. BYU's got to be far better on defense this year. There's no doubt about that. And they made significant changes to that staff, like the entire defensive staff, essentially. And one of the things I want to talk to Kalani about, and I hope we get him, one of the things I want to talk to him about is the fact that it takes a lot of courage to do that, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, you know, it's, you know, when you have family or friends or, you know, just real tight relationships, like, it's not easy to, you know, to make that happen. And he did it. And you got to give him credit, but now it's time to win football games, because it's all for naught if you haven't won anything.
Yeah, why make all the changes if you're not going to win football games? Provo Cougar fan, saw you guys in the background on 365 Sports Show and checked back in. Oh, nice. Appreciate that. Starry says Tech will be there tomorrow. Indeed, they will. Tech on site tomorrow. Indeed, they are. Indeed, they are. It's going to be awesome. TCU has 5. Bug Clark, Brandon Coleman. They've got a bunch of dudes here. They have got and we have not gotten a single one.
Who's that?
From TCU.
Yeah, TCU was very quick in and out.
Yeah, Aaron Wilson, Arizona time zone showgrum. Could be. Could be, man. I'm telling you. It's just that today has been one of those days where, when you sit here and you talk about what this event means, like that Brett Yormark press conference was not insignificant. And I think his explanation for, what he meant by open for business was really interesting. It's a really compelling answer.
Well, I think he didn't have a choice but to clarify. I mean, geez,
well, he was being asked about it enough.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's this whole thing with guys like Brett Yormark or other commissioners or whatever, where they have they don't want to be seen as a raider or as the pillager of the Pac-12. They don't want to be seen as that, and I think that's why you're not seeing a lot of movement or really anything happening on the realignment front, because everybody, I think, wants the Pac-12 to go left or to go right. Like, you're at the fork in the road, just go whichever way you're going to go. And then we have a plan for whichever way you go. I mean, Yormark, again, conjecture, my opinion, like just what I believe he was saying when I heard him say it. I mean, talking about how they have a plan and they'd like to see it come to fruition. Brett Yormark is not a, hey, we have a plan, maybe guy. So what that means to me is, hey, we have a plan and we'd like to see it come to fruition. They've got a plan for picking up Pac-12 schools. That's what that says to me. I mean, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe that's not what he meant, but Brett Yormark, I feel like that's kind of the message he was trying to send.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that's the message he was trying to send. And I think expansion's coming. I don't think there's any question about it. And I know that everybody lost their minds last week when we were talking about the fact that you have essentially a new power structure with the board of directors in the Pac-12. But I'm telling you, adding Bobby Robbins to that board is that's interesting. That's interesting. And everybody was telling me the other day, well, that's just the way it works and it's his turn. Well, fuck that. He talked about leaving the conference.
Yeah.
And his football coach talked about being somewhere. Now, like he essentially gave you, and I'll play the answer again, but listen, man, Jed Fish gave an answer not dissimilar to what San Diego State said. Yeah, we're going to be somewhere. Not sure where, but we'll be somewhere.
Arizona's going to have a place to go. And that's what I tell our recruits.
Be all right.
That's what I tell our donors. That's what I tell our families of current personnel. We have a great brand. And we have a great basketball program, we have a great softball program, a great baseball program, and I believe we have the opportunity to have an incredible football program.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Yeah.
Where we play our road games, we'll wait and see for our president. But we are locked in and loaded for this season, and we're going to try to just be where our feet are, which is right now in the Pac-10.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Hello.
We're planning our sabotage.
We're planning the takeover of day 2.
That's right. We should get Brett Yormark tomorrow morning. I don't want to say it out loud.
Well, when you want to get a name like that, you kind of got to scheme. You got to understand the landscape and understand that a guy like Brett Yormark is there is a very small window in time that you may or may not have an opportunity. A scheduling guy said, hey, we're getting here at 8:15. If you're here, you have a chance. I can't guarantee anything, but if you're here, you have a chance. Which tells me, hey,
that's how we got Larry Scott.
When Buddy walks in, it's go time.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, and we'll be ready. But anyway, so you hear Jed Fish from Arizona talking there about, hey, Arizona's a name. We'll have a place. We'll have a home. Like that's a very different answer than, oh yeah, we're fine. We're fine. No, we're fine. We're going to be in the Pac-12. We love the Pac-12. What do you mean move?
Tired of talking about it, basically.
Very different answer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll be somewhere. Might not be in the Pac-12, but we'll be somewhere. Like that's a very different answer. So you put the president, Bobby Robbins, is Jed Fish's boss. So you put that guy on the board. That's crazy to me. And I know everybody said, well, it was his turn, man. Who cares?
Well, my answer to that is, okay, yeah, sure, it's an administrative process, which is kind of the hill that everyone died on with this conversation. But this has been my point the whole time about this. Dude, when you were negotiating your last TV deal, do you not consider when your board rolls over? Like, did you not consider, hey, this TV deal we're negotiating, that final year of negotiation is going to be a year when our board flips or rolls over, or like there's turnover there in natural progression. It doesn't matter if it's an auto thing. It's happening in the year that you're trying to survive. That's why it's a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I truly, honestly, I don't know how on earth, and again, this is just me, I don't know how on earth the Pac-12 lets this stuff happen. How is Kirk Schultz how is he the president of the board of directors or the chairman of the board of directors?
I don't know.
One of the worst business operations in the Pac-12 by all accounts, and he's not. Like, that's what I mean. So when we sit here and we talk about Brett Yormark making statements about, hey, we're open for business, sure, but we're open for business to make money.
Yeah.
It's just such a stark contrast.
Yeah.
It is such a stark contrast. It is so unbelievable to me. It's crazy, man. Let's see. Aaron Wilson, Gundy needs to get a good trolling to get the vines out on him. Okay. Let's see. OG Gary, BY bringing my Utes over? We'll ask him. Go Tigers. Go Black 45. Are you guys going to Pac-10 Media Days in Vegas? We're not, simply because they took so long to announce it.
Yeah.
That it made it difficult for us to plan and execute that we don't do things lightly. So we need to have things printed. We need to have partners. We need to we don't just throw things out there and hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did not have the time to scale that up. Would love to go to Pac-10 Media Days, but unfortunately we're not going to be there because they did not give us enough runway for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of their plan. I think they didn't necessarily want that, Aaron Wilson, anyone else hella proud of Jakey Two Holes? Not me. Do your damn job.
Hey, I was pissed there for a while. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was pissed.
Steak dinner,
dude.
Two hours from now, we'll be having a steak dinner.
No, I mean, it's funny. Get a couple interviews, my headache disappeared already. It's amazing how that works.
You were stressing a little bit.
Yeah,
huh?
I was pissed, dude. I yeah, we want the interviews. I mean, okay, this is what I always maintain. It's one thing if hey, we just ain't got time. Sorry, man. Okay, that's one thing. But if you say, hey, we're coming back around, and I will give you somebody, and then you don't give me somebody, that's when I get upset. Just tell me to go F myself. It's fine. It's literally, awesome. It's fine, bro. It's fine.
That is awesome.
It is fine.
You know what, man? I think that is exactly what you're looking for. That is exactly what you're looking for. I'm telling you, man. Patrick Paul just walked by again.
Patrick Paul is a beast.
God dang.
He's one of the nicest humans out here, too. That's the other thing.
You guys want to see a large human? Look at Patrick Paul. That's Patrick
But
Paul.
he's not even in the frame.
Dude. No, he's not in the frame. He is the frame. He is a nope, wrong way. He is a big dude, man. And I'm telling you, I don't know how many more different ways I can say this. Dana Holgorsen was awesome.
Yep.
If you missed that conversation, Jakey Two Holes will cut it after dinner. It'll be posted tonight. Hopefully, I think, right? Probably not.
I'll probably have to post it in the morning because of internet purposes.
Oh, for internet purposes. Oh. Anyway, I'm kidding. Anyway, the point is, I think Houston's going to be far better than people think. I do think people are going to be far better than people think. What do you want to do here, man?
I don't see BYU is supposed to come back around. Like he said, guy's name is Kenny.
Yeah.
Kenny said that they were going to come back around. They did their media availability over there, I think, but I don't see them. Considering
we've done 7 hours of content today, maybe we tape some for you. But hey, you guys, big shout out to bladehq.com. I mean, just really proud of those guys. And it's remarkable to me that bladehq.com is really taking care of us on this remote. Go shout those guys out. Get on their social media. Find them on Instagram. Find them on Snapface, Twitter, Facebook, and just say, hey, thanks for taking care of the Monty Show. We really appreciate when you guys shout out our clients. Do one better. Get to bladehq.com. One of the best e-commerce websites you're ever going to see. Bladehq.com. The best knives from the best knife makers, outdoor equipment. If you're a hunter, if you're a fisherman, if you're a survivalist, bladehq.com is your equipment home. Hook it up with bladehq.com. And again, if you could do us a small favor of hey, find him on Facebook, find him on Instagram, find him on Twitter, and say, hey, thanks for supporting the Monty Show at Big 12 Football Media Days. We would appreciate that as well. Look for all of our taped interviews to be coming up here in a while. Back again at it tomorrow morning. Follow me on Twitter. I'll update you if you're in our Instagram group. You already know. But until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.